The film revolves around Young Hee-seong, an exceptional agent of the South Korean National Intelligence Service. He is tasked with recovering a stolen Buddha statue, a national treasure. After tracking down the smuggling ring, he and his team brave the danger to approach the exchange point. Without hesitation, Hee-seong single-handedly sneaks in from above, suddenly taking down a fat guy, sending him tumbling from the second floor, throwing the criminals into chaos. He quickly jumps down, ready for a fight. They see he's alone and show contempt. But in the blink of an eye, Hee-seong systematically takes them down one by one. Realizing the situation is unfavorable, the smugglers hastily gather the money and attempt to flee with the Buddha statue. However, a member of Hee-seong's team had infiltrated them in disguise, waiting for the opportune moment. He quickly handcuffs one thug and uses a rope to restrain the other. Terrified, this one immediately kneels, begging to surrender. Just when the mission seems successful, the man in the red shirt unexpectedly strikes, knocking Hee-seong down. He snatches the Buddha statue and the money, gleefully making his escape. His teammate immediately shouts an alarm. Hee-seong instantly gives chase, drawing his gun and firing a warning shot into the air. The shot makes the man in red shirt freeze. He coldly threatens, if he doesn't drop it and surrender, the next bullet will go straight through his skull. Just as the man in the red shirt is about to give up, another accomplice unexpectedly charges in, swinging a bat from behind. However, that action slows him down. Seizing the opportunity, the man in the red shirt jumps into the car and speeds away. Just when it seems like he's lost his prey, Hee-seong isn't the type to give up easily. He immediately turns around, jumps on a motorcycle, and speeds off, closely tailing the white car. A heart-stopping chase begins. Command receives the news and immediately orders them only to follow and not to take reckless action. But Hee-seong doesn't bother listening. He forcefully yanks out his earpiece, disconnecting from his team, deciding to handle it himself. Knowing he's being followed, the man in red shirt frantically shouts, urging his accomplice to drive faster to lose him. The car speeds along, swerving wildly through traffic. But Hee-seong is no slouch either. His skillful driving helps him maintain the distance, staying close at every turn. The driver suddenly jerks the steering wheel, trying to cut off the motorcycle and knock Hee-seong off. But at that moment, he suddenly accelerates, using his foot to kick hard against the car to gain momentum, then spectacularly flips himself onto the roof of the car. A powerful punch lands like a thunderbolt straight into the windshield. The man in the red shirt screams in panic, swerving wildly to shake him off. The car begins to veer violently, but Hee-seong holds on tight. Sensing the critical situation, he immediately removes his helmet, using all his strength to smash repeatedly into the sunroof. After a few powerful blows, the glass shatters. Not missing the opportunity, he dives inside, grabbing the man in the red shirt. The Buddha statue falls to the side. Using a skillful technique, he violently yanks the seatbelt, tightening it around the neck of the man in the red shirt. He struggles, trying to kick open the car door to escape, causing half of Hee-seong's body to be thrown out onto the road. He firmly grips the seatbelt with one hand to keep himself from falling, while trying to hold onto the Buddha statue with the other to keep it from dropping. Gathering all his strength, he pulls himself back into the car. At this moment, the accomplice driving the car is too busy looking behind them and fails to notice what's ahead. When he realizes it, it's too late. The car crashes straight into the construction barricades in front of them. The massive impact flips the car over, spinning it several times before it comes to a stop. Hee-seong's teammates rush over, shouting his name in panic. Before them is a burning pile of scrap metal, with no sign of him anywhere. A figure gradually appears in the misty smoke. It's Hee-seong. He carries the man in the red shirt over one shoulder, while firmly holding the Buddha statue in the other. He walks step by step toward his teammates. Whenever he receives a mission, Hee-seong is always willing to risk his life to complete it. This time is no exception. Despite the wounds covering his face, he resolutely carries the Buddha statue back and hands it over to his superior. The leader is pleased when he sees him bring back the treasure. However, when he opens each layer of the plastic wrap to inspect it, his eyes suddenly freeze. The Buddha statue is missing an arm. Silence falls. A female employee nearby suddenly discovers a broken arm and a long bullet casing right next to it. Everyone immediately turns their eyes toward Heseong. The bullet fired by Heseong had accidentally hit the Buddha statue, breaking off an arm. The next day, Heseong brought the bandaged statue to the director. Seeing the Buddha statue with a broken arm, the director was so enraged he got a headache. He immediately ordered the team leader to fire Heseong. Someone had to take responsibility for the damaged Buddha statue. Heseong, once a highly celebrated hero, suddenly became an outcast. Initially, the team leader immediately objected upon hearing this. He tried to explain, pleaded fervently, and even accepted all of the director's conditions just to keep Heseong on the team. The director remained silent for a moment, then unexpectedly changed his mind. He handed the team leader a file. The team leader's expression instantly shifted. During dinner, the atmosphere was heavy as everyone thought Heseong would be kicked off the team. At that moment, team leader Gong announced a mission assigned by the director. If completed, Heseong could keep his position. The new mission: he had to go undercover as a high school student and infiltrate Byungmoon High School to find the gold that traitor Seo Byungmoon had hidden during the Japanese occupation. According to classified documents, when he was alive, Seo Byungmoon had been entrusted with 10 tons of imperial gold by the emperor, but he embezzled 800 billion won and hid it separately. When Japan surrendered, he fled without taking the gold with him. Currently, the treasure is believed to be hidden somewhere within Byungmoon High School. Despite not wanting to, Heseong was forced to accept the mission, because if he refused, the entire team would be disbanded. In another development, when the Byungmoon High School teachers went out for karaoke, the principal kept pressuring Sue to drink. Unable to refuse, she finished a large glass in front of everyone's admiring eyes. When leaving, as the principal was bending over to get into a taxi, Sue suddenly ran up, intending to ask him something. But before she could say anything, she accidentally pulled off his toupee, revealing his bald head in front of the other teachers. The principal was stunned, and Sue quickly put the toupee back on his head. Then, she immediately bolted into a taxi and fled. At Sue's mother's bar, she happened to see an extremely handsome man sitting and drinking. It was Heseong. While she was staring, a group of high school students came to the bar, demanding to be served alcohol. Because they were underage, her mother refused to sell to them, but they intended to cause trouble. Sue angrily stepped in to intervene, but didn't dare reveal her identity because she was just a student teacher. The students brazenly tried to start a fight with Heseong, but with minimal effort, he knocked them all to the ground. Witnessing this, Sue couldn't help but be surprised, even somewhat drawn to his strength. Heseong walked along the road, thinking about the upcoming mission. From a special agent to having to disguise himself as a high school student, would it even work? Arriving home, he slumped down on the sofa, reminiscing about the past. When he was in school, because he was an orphan, he was often bullied by his classmates. The teachers turned a blind eye, even when they saw it. Those memories were etched into his mind. And now, he had to go back to being a student again. The next day, the team gathered at the office to research Byungmoon High School. It was a prestigious school. Each year, more than 100 students were admitted to top universities in South Korea. Alumni held important positions in politics, law, and media, forming a powerful network. The school operated on the principle of survival of the fittest, with strict discipline and a hierarchical structure like the military. The student council was an organization exclusively for wealthy families. To help Heseong enroll without raising suspicion, Agent Park Ma-young created a flawless, airtight fake profile. The atmosphere in the team was determined, but when Ma-young asked team leader Gong if he was certain the gold was there, he hesitated, admitting there was no concrete evidence. Since this was assigned by the director, he ordered them to trust and follow the director's instructions. However, many team members suspected that there would be no gold, and that the mission might be pointless. Finally, a crucial piece of information was revealed. Heseong was the nephew of team leader Gong's wife. During dinner, team leader Gong announced that Heseong would be enrolling at Byungmoon High School next week. His daughter was excited to have her cousin nearby, but his wife worried about her nephew's safety. Heseong reassured everyone. The family raised their glasses, wishing him success in completing the mission. On his first day at school, Heseong was cornered by a group of bullies who demanded he step aside and let them pass. In the teacher's lounge, he witnessed a teacher angrily berating someone, demanding that Miss Sua show her face. She was hiding behind the wall, but when the teacher asked Hee-seong if he had seen her, he pointed in the opposite direction, helping her escape the situation. After the teacher left, Sua emerged and introduced herself as the homeroom teacher. She specialized in teaching Korean history. Taking a closer look, she suddenly realized that Hee-seong was the man in the suit from the other day. She immediately grabbed his ear and dragged him into a secluded spot, suspecting that he had forged documents to drink alcohol at the bar. She warned him, "I'll let it slide this time since you're a new transfer student. If you do it again, I'm sending you straight to the guidance counselor." Hee-seong, still not used to being a student, blurted out, "It's not like you were acting any better." The comment stunned Sue, but immediately, Hee-seong corrected himself, flashing a bright smile. "My bad. You were pretty great. Let's just call it even for today." In the first class, Sua introduced the new student to the class. When Hee-seong walked in, everyone was surprised by his masculine appearance. However, the most shocked person was Hee-seong's cousin. She hadn't expected to be in the same class. She immediately texted him, telling him to meet her on the roof. Up there, she questioned him, "Are you really here as a student? I thought you'd be a professor or something." Hee-seong sighed and replied, "It's not like I wanted to be a student either." The cousin didn't say anything more, simply advising him quietly, "I'll try to help you. But you have to promise not to tell mom and dad about how I live my life at school, okay?" He nodded in agreement, making a pinky promise with her. During class, Hee-seong kept dozing off. When Sua tapped him on the shoulder to wake him up, due to the reflexes of a seasoned agent, he almost struck his teacher, leaving the entire class stunned and horrified. Sua immediately started yelling and began hitting him on the head with her book. His cousin could only sigh helplessly at the situation. During break time, a group of female students, attracted by Hee-seong's masculine looks, approached him and asked for his social media account. However, the girls' words and the way they talked were completely baffling to him, and he didn't know what to do. He called his teammates to ask for the meaning, but they were clueless, too. Observing the bustling school life before him, Hee-seong felt strange and just wanted to quickly complete his mission and leave this place. Wandering through the school, he discovered an abandoned building with a "Do Not Enter" sign posted by the school. Immediately, he sensed something was off and went to investigate. The main door was locked shut. He took a picture of the scene and then looked for a way to climb in through the back window. However, the window wouldn't open either. He continued to observe and stopped at the electrical meter and started to put two and two together. At this moment, a group of students were bullying a kid sitting near him. At first, Hee-seong intended to walk away, but accidentally kicked a trash can, drawing the group's attention to him. The little punks started trouble, forcing him to buy them snacks. In just a split second, Hee-seong's icy gaze sent chills down their spines. He was about to teach them a lesson when he suddenly had a hallucination of his uncle chanting, reminding him to be patient. Wanting to complete his mission quickly, he was forced to endure, allowing the kids to hit him. In another development, Sua was talking to a colleague about the new student. She felt crazy that she had felt her heart race because of a student. After school, Hee-seong asked the bullied student about the abandoned building. From the boy's account, he learned that this was a building from the Japanese occupation era. Back home, Hee-seong immediately reported to the team leader, emphasizing that the building had been abandoned for a long time, but the electric meter was still working normally. If the school were truly concerned about the safety of the students, it should have been torn down a long time ago. Why was the school keeping it until now? After reporting, he changed his clothes, put on a mask to cover himself completely, and prepared to infiltrate the building because there were security cameras inside. He used specialized equipment to disrupt the internet line, jamming the signal for a short time, allowing him to sneak in undetected. In just 3 seconds, the lock was picked. He carefully used his flashlight, advancing deeper inside step by step. Suddenly, a gun from the darkness was pointed straight at him. The person pointing the gun was none other than his homeroom teacher, Sue. She demanded he take off his hat and mask. But Hee-seong knew that revealing himself at this point would mean all of his plans would fall apart. He quickly shined his flashlight directly into her eyes, creating a moment of blinding light to take advantage of the situation and run. Hee-seong took off like a madman. But Soo-ah was not easily giving up. Coming from the sports club, she possessed incredible stamina and agility. While chasing, she shouted, "Stop!" However, in the heat of the moment, she accidentally bumped into the security guard, causing her to miss a step and allowing Hee-seong to escape her grasp. He quickly disappeared into the night, leaving Soo-ah full of regret. After escaping, Hee-seong called his uncle to tell him what happened. Hearing this, his uncle yelled, "You gotta be careful, what if the teachers catch you?" Meanwhile, Soo-ah also called her mom, saying she just chased after a masked guy who broke into her old school. Her mom was startled and asked, "Did you catch him?" Soo-ah sighed regretfully, "Nope, I let him get away. I should have just punched him. If I'd caught him, I might have gotten hired as a permanent teacher. What a waste." The next day, the school's chairwoman went to the abandoned house and heard that a stranger had broken in the night before. She calmly walked in, saw the lock was broken, and figured out Soo-ah had spotted the intruder on the first floor but couldn't catch him. The chairwoman sighed, asking for them to look into whether there were any other witnesses. Meanwhile, Hee-seong still had to keep up with his assignment. Every day at school, he just kept dozing off and cursing his luck. "Why do I still have to learn math at this age?" The kid sitting next to him, not understanding, blurted out, "What's wrong with our age?" About to ditch, Hee-seong got roped into a mission by a bunch of kids, beat a video game within 3 days. They kept threatening him until he agreed. His little sister, seeing this, could only sigh helplessly at her brother. Hee-seong was pissed but had to suck it up to finish the mission quickly. He secretly snuck off to a corner and called Agent Ma-young from his team, asking for help to beat the game. Hearing this, Ma-young was speechless and hung up, leaving Hee-seong to deal with his own mess. Hee-seong screamed in despair as his sister witnessed him struggling with an impossible task. She didn't offer comfort but instead teased, "Oh geez, that sucks, doesn't it? You couldn't get the agent to help, so now you're trying to get me." She shook her head, refusing instantly. "I didn't even get to tell you not to mess with T-Soo before you got involved. He's a textbook bully. His dad's a congressman, so he always picks on students." Hearing that, Hee-seong worriedly asked, "What about you? Are you okay?" His sister smiled smugly. "I'm fine. We're in the student council together." Hee-seong was surprised. "You're in there too? I heard it's super hard to get in." She smiled lightly. "It's whatever. But you better watch out for T-Soo. If things get too big and the student council finds out, I can't save you." With that, she left, leaving Hee-seong deep in thought. On the other side, the teacher, Soo-ah, wasn't doing so well either. Her superiors heavily criticized her for letting the stranger get away the night before. All she could do was bow her head and admit her fault, promising to catch him next time. Her superiors still weren't satisfied, ordering her to review a massive pile of documents and submit a summary. Looking at the mountain of paperwork, Soo-ah, though seething with anger, had to grit her teeth and comply for fear of getting fired. Her subordinate reported the situation to the chairwoman. Other than Soo-ah, there were no other witnesses. The security cameras also didn't record anything special, except there was a slight glitch in the image. The security guys said he might have used image jamming equipment. Hearing that, the chairwoman smirked, showing obvious contempt. "Playing games, huh? If he ran off on the first floor, he probably hasn't gotten into the basement yet. He'll be back. Let's see what he's up to." Soo-ah, though extremely frustrated with being bullied at work, couldn't do anything but complain to her 2 close colleagues. While they were talking, the principal suddenly appeared, causing her to flinch and spill her drink all over him. Class started, and Soo-ah noticed Dong-min was absent without explanation. She called him, but no one answered. Hee-seong also noticed the kid sitting next to him was absent and felt worried. While playing the game and not being able to get past the level, he got pissed and was about to smash his phone when he suddenly saw a man entering the abandoned house. Curious, he was about to follow when a security guard stopped him. "You trying to cause trouble? Haven't you heard the order banning students from getting near the old building? The principal's super sensitive since someone broke in yesterday. If he catches you, he'll chew you out. Don't know who he is, but just let me catch him. Bottom line, you can't go in there. Lollygagging nearby will get you in trouble." Hearing that, Hee Seong obediently agreed and left. He immediately called to report the situation and started investigating on his own. Near a trash can, he suddenly found Dong Min tied up and gagged inside. Hee Seong was furious. "Aren't you angry?" Dong Min replied helplessly. "Yeah, but I can't do anything, I just have to put up with it. Don't say anything to the homeroom teacher, or I'll be in big trouble." Hee Seong felt a pang of guilt thinking about Dong Min, an orphan who was living off his grandmother and being treated poorly. In the midst of his thoughts, Miss Sue, a teacher, appeared. She asked how Dong Min was, but Dong Min evaded her questions, unable to tell the truth. The boy could only lie, saying, "I just accidentally fell into a trash can, ma'am." Sue looked at him with suspicion, but there wasn't much she could do. She just sighed, feeling that something was very wrong at this school. Miss Sue pulled Hee Seong aside for a private conversation. She suspected him of being involved in Dong Min's bullying. Looking into Hee Seong's eyes, she slammed her hand on the desk as if she'd just realized something. She raised her hand, about to cover half of his face, wanting to confirm her suspicions. She asked him to come closer, but Hee Seong kept dodging her, causing her to accidentally trip and fall. The humiliating fall made her furious, and she snapped, "I'm going to be watching you. Focus on your studies." Hearing this, Hee Seong immediately ran away, leaving the teacher frustrated. Meanwhile, Hee Seong's group saw a news article about Chairman Myung-ju's massive project. This project would transform Myung-ju into an international education city, at a cost of 800 billion won. Hee Seong's group realized that Emperor Gung's gold was being smuggled overseas for money laundering. They were using national assets for personal gain. This was the important clue they needed to investigate. At the same time, the school's chairwoman called her subordinates down to ask about rumors of online gambling involving students. She sternly asked, "Recently, there have been rumors spreading among the students about online gambling. Are any of our students involved?" The vice principal hastily replied, "I assure you, on my honor, that I will manage the students tightly and prevent such a situation from occurring." The meeting took place under the chairwoman's strict guidance, creating a tense atmosphere. Concurrently, the student council was also meeting. T-Soo, a nasty bully, walked in, reeking of cigarette smoke. He said irritably, "That transfer student's got a lot of nerve." He released Dong Min from his leash without the boss's permission. He smirked, recounting the process of tormenting Dong Min, causing everyone in the room to fall silent. Student Council President Yi Na, upon hearing this, also got annoyed and was about to speak when Yu Young, a timid member, spoke first. "Do you really have to do that? Honestly, there should be limits. People aren't going to like it if you do that. What if it affects the Student Council?" T-Soo cut her off, his voice full of contempt. "You're really something, aren't you? Who are you to lecture me? You're allowed to talk because you're in the Student Council, but are you blind? Are we even on the same level? Get over yourself. You're just a leftover that Yi Na is supporting. You should thank Dong Min. If it weren't for him, it would be you." Yi Na, upon hearing this, could no longer restrain herself and spoke up. "Yu Young's not wrong. Apologize to her now." T-Soo started to object, but Yi Na continued. "Your dad is preparing to run for a 4th term in Jeju Island, right? Yesterday, party leaders came to my house. They were discussing the election with my mother, I believe. If your dad is out of a job, you'll be just as worthless. Before that happens, apologize now." Yi Na's family was far more powerful than T-Soo's, so he had no choice but to swallow his anger and reluctantly apologize to Yu Young. After class, Yi Na stopped Yu Young, saying, "Next time, don't stick your neck out. What you said to T-Soo just now, I'll say it later, not you." In the classroom, Hee Seong saw Dong Min sitting alone. He asked, "Aren't you going to eat?" Dong Min awkwardly replied, "I'll eat later. It's embarrassing to eat alone." Seeing this, Hee Seong sat down and pretended to sleep. "I hate crowds. Wake me up when you go to eat." Dong Min asked, "Why did you go to the old building last time? It's better if you don't think about going in there, especially the basement. I've been there, so I know. If you're curious, I'll tell you while we eat. That incident was what Hee Seong was most interested in. Hearing this, he immediately asked Dong Min to go eat together. Seeing Hee Seong eager to know more, Dong Min began to recount the haunting story of the old building. Before the building was no longer in use, there was a ballet club operating there. In the club was a talented female student, practicing day and night to pursue her dream of becoming a professional ballerina. However, she became a victim of cruel bullying from other female students at the school. One day, while running away from those female students, she had a terrible accident, hit head-on by a car. Her legs were paralyzed, and she could no longer walk. In pain and despair, she looked at her ballet dress, a symbol of her shattered dream, and decided to hang herself. After she passed away, a group of female students hid her body in a secret place in the old building to cover up their mistake. From then on, every night, at the exact time she passed away, people would see her ghostly figure appear in the building. Hearing this, Hee Seong's legs began to tremble uncontrollably, completely overwhelmed by fear. Dong Min continued, recounting how he once risked going down to the basement, camera in hand, and actually saw the ghost of that girl. Despite his terror, when he reviewed the video, Dong Min discovered a door with a mysterious passcode. Just as he was about to continue his story, a group of notorious school bullies appeared, intending to harass Dong Min again. Tae-soo, the ringleader, spat into Dong Min's lunch tray and demanded he eat it. Tae-soo yelled, "If you don't eat it, I'll strip you naked." Terrified, Dong Min picked up a spoon, ready to eat, but Hee Seong coldly stopped him. "Don't eat it. I think this has gone too far. You guys are disgusting." Enraged, Tae-soo knocked over the lunch tray. A female student who witnessed the incident quickly ran to report it to the teacher. Furious, Tae-soo grabbed Hee Seong by the collar and dragged him outside to fight. He raised his hand to punch, but Hee Seong quickly gained control, causing Tae-soo considerable pain. Since there were several cameras recording, Hee Seong didn't want to start a fight, but Tae-soo kept lunging at him. Just then, Miss Soo-ae, the teacher, appeared and ordered both of them to the counselor's office. In the office, Tae-soo challenged Hee Seong. "You still don't realize how much trouble you're in, do you? You messed with the wrong guy. I'm going to make you regret this to the very core." At that moment, Vice Principal Hee-woo walked in and called Tae-soo out. Miss Soo stayed behind to talk to Hee Seong, constantly scolding him. But Hee Seong just calmly replied, "You don't know anything. I can't tell if you're deliberately ignoring it or just oblivious. Teacher, are you really paying attention to your class? It seems Tae-soo is a better actor than I thought. If you know what's going on and are still pretending, I'll be extremely disappointed. I have nothing more to say. From now on, handle it however you see fit." Hee Seong's blunt words left Miss Soo speechless, unsure how to react. Afterward, Dong Min came and gave Hee Seong a pastry. He smiled sheepishly and said, "It feels good to be protected by someone." He realized that Hee Seong wasn't ordinary. He was someone with real power, just hiding it. Meanwhile, Miss Soo was furious because of Hee Seong's words. She drank alcohol while talking to herself. What does he know? How can he say I don't care about my class? Who do you think I'm trying to become a permanent teacher for? She slammed her hand on the table, startling everyone in the bar. Her mother, seeing this, comforted her. "This is the path you've chosen. Be patient." On the other side, Hee Seong's team was having dinner when the director sent someone with a video. The video, showing Hee Seong fighting, widened everyone's eyes in surprise. Hee Seong then went to meet the director, who was preparing to play golf with the team captain. He warned him, "You have to be discreet when you're on a mission, no causing trouble at school. If this happens again, the mission will be terminated. Immediately, the prosecutor's office will investigate you for destroying national heritage. I heard you and the Bureau get favoritism because of your father being an agent too. When you see your father again, what are you going to tell him? That you got kicked off the mission for screwing things up." Hearing those words, Hee Seong was furious, but had to suppress it. He knew he had to be more careful if he didn't want everything to fall apart. That night, Hee Seong decided he would complete the mission once and for all. He sneaked into the old building. As soon as he unlocked the door, he was unexpectedly discovered by Dong Min. The boy looked at him suspiciously. "What are you doing here? Are you here because of the ghost stories about this abandoned building?" Is that why you're secretly coming in here? Hyunjun Hee-seong immediately became tense. This place is off limits, and I can't reveal my identity. You can't come with me. You worked hard to get into this school. If you get punished because of this, not only will you be in trouble, but your grandmother will be very sad. Go home. But Dong-min stubbornly trailed after him. Hee-seong, unable to convince him, had no choice but to let Dong-min come along. The two of them slowly descended into the basement. The atmosphere was tense and filled with apprehension. Suddenly, they heard noise coming from a room inside. When they entered, they witnessed a horrifying sight. A man was sitting, hammering nails into something. He saw them, immediately threw the hammer at Hee-seong, and quickly fled. Hee-seong didn't hesitate. He chased after the stranger in a thrilling pursuit. However, the stranger was faster and successfully escaped. Hee-seong had no choice but to return to the room he had long suspected. Seeing the situation, he immediately called the team captain. It looks like we'll have to extend this mission. The way I see it, Chairman Seo is also looking for the gold bars. He quickly took out his phone, photographed the entire room, and documented all the important details. Afterward, Hee-seong turned back to call Dong-min back. But when he saw the boy's terrified expression, he looked down and discovered a skeleton lying on the ground. The entire scene of him inside the abandoned building had been viewed by the chairwoman through the security camera system. As Hee-seong jumped down, a quick glance told him it was just a sophisticated model. Besides that, he discovered a strange key and took it with him, along with the important data he had collected over the past few days. These things presented extremely important clues in this case. The key he found would likely unlock a secret door, aiding the search for the treasure later on. Through this, Hee-seong also figured out that the haunted house story was just a trick to scare people away, preventing them from getting close. It was a way to conceal the dark secrets happening inside the house. He outlined a specific plan. First, find the gold before Chairwoman Myungju. Second, now that they knew the ghost story was linked to the gold, focus on the ghost stories at the school. There were a total of 4 ghost stories, and Hee-seong and his team decided to unravel them one by one. The chairwoman's subordinate arrived to inform her about the ghost story. She seemed very excited, but didn't rush into action. Instead, she decided to wait for the rabbit to jump out of the bushes, waiting for the curious students to find the clues themselves. She believed they would lead her to the treasure. After learning about the first ghost story, Hee-seong went to see Dong-min again to ask about the second ghost story, the story of the grandfather clock. Dong-min said that everyone thought the clock was broken, but one night, he witnessed it chime once. Since then, the students at the school had spread rumors that if you stayed in school alone when the clock chimed, red eyes would appear and capture you. This story made the atmosphere in the school even more chilling. Meanwhile, Hee-seong's subordinate called to report the results of the examination of the ballet shoes. As expected, they had been buried there since the 1950s. After reviewing the blood test results, they also identified the masked man from the other day, the one who was nailing the floorboards in the practice room. Hee-seong decided to get information from the school's security guard. Initially, the security guard seemed hesitant and unwilling to reveal anything. But Hee-seong photographed his footprints and questioned him, "What were you doing there?" Seeing that he was still reluctant, he added more information. The skeleton down there was fake. The pressure from the evidence and information that Hee-seong held forced the security guard to cooperate. The security guard sighed and began to tell his story. It all started one evening when he was feeding the cats. Following one of the cats, he accidentally discovered an abandoned building. Out of curiosity, he went deeper inside. In one corner of the room, he noticed that the floorboards were loose, so he pried them open to see. What he saw shocked him, a skeleton lying underneath. Frightened and panicked, he dropped his flashlight. At that moment, his phone rang, and in his carelessness, it also fell down with the skeleton. He wanted to jump down to retrieve his belongings, but his feet wouldn't touch the bottom. Half his body was dangling over the hole when a student walked in. Seeing the strange sight, the student thought he was a ghost, screamed, and ran away immediately. The security guard also admitted that the masked man that day was him. Fearing that everyone would discover the secret, he returned to nail the floorboards shut. When he saw someone appear, he panicked and threw the hammer at Hee-seong in self-defense. After getting information from the security guard, Hee-seong went to meet his colleagues. But to his surprise, the team was meeting at a sandwich shop. The team leader announced, "From now on, this will be our base to support Hee-seong." Everyone decided to stay close to the scene for easy monitoring. The real owner of the shop was temporarily on vacation in the S, and the remaining employee had been silenced with 100,000 won by the team leader. Meanwhile, Dong-min mustered all his courage to go to Tae-soo to demand the return of his grandmother's ID card. But Tae-soo continued to threaten and beat him. He threw the ID card on the ground. When Dong-min bent down to pick it up, Tae-soo stomped on his hand. That heartbreaking scene was witnessed by teacher Sue, who had been secretly watching from behind. She stepped out, stopped him, and demanded that Tae-soo go to the counseling office. However, Tae-soo's attitude was not at all fearful. He challenged the teacher. "You're just a contract teacher, you should know your place. But because you're pretty, I'll let it slide. Don't be so reckless in the future." After speaking, he left, leaving her with anger and helplessness. In class, teacher Sue turned to confront Dong-min. "How long have you been getting bullied? Why didn't you speak up?" Dong-min, though visibly frightened, tried to deny it. "We're just joking around, ma'am." But his eyes and the injuries on his arm told a different story. Teacher Sue felt like she had just been punched in the gut. She realized she had seriously misunderstood Hee-seong. His words from earlier echoed in her mind. "Do you really care about your class?" Hee-seong was walking down the street, replaying Sue's accusations in his head. He felt a knot in his stomach, wanting to call his subordinates to look into that punk Tae-soo. But then the director's warning flashed in his mind: if you cause any more trouble, the assignment gets shut down. Immediately, he swallowed his anger and decided to turn a blind eye. Just then, he saw Dong-min's grandmother frantically picking up papers that had blown onto the street. Without hesitation, he rushed to help her, then helped her up and walked her almost all the way home. When Dong-min came home and saw this, he was incredibly grateful. For some time now, Hee-seong had been his closest friend, always looking out for him. Hee-seong gave him his phone number and told him, "If anything happens, call me anytime." Dong-min nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. Teacher Sue, after learning the truth about Dong-min, also wanted to find a way to protect and help him. But Tae-soo's influence was too great, and she was hesitant. Besides, she was just a contract teacher, without much power. Downcast, she wandered the streets and happened to stop by a convenience store. There, she unexpectedly ran into Hee-seong. They sat down at the same table, and she didn't hesitate to apologize to him for her previous misunderstanding. Hee-seong took out the 2001 that Dong-min's grandmother had given him and split it in half, giving one half to Sue. Holding the coin, Sue aside, worried about how to deal with Tae-soo reasonably. But another heartbreaking event occurred with Dong-min. Tae-soo had used his grandmother's ID to gamble online. As a result, the police came to the house and arrested her. Terrified and anxious, Dong-min immediately called Hee-seong. Upon receiving the news, both Hee-seong and Sue were immediately at the police station. Furious, the two decided to collaborate on writing an article exposing Tae-soo's acts of violence and illegal gambling. The article was posted on the school's news site, causing a huge stir. The incident forced the school principal to convene a meeting with Tae-soo's parents to resolve it. However, in front of the principal and parents, Dong-min had to suppress his grievances. Under pressure from the veiled threats from Tae-soo's parents, he said, "What was written on the bulletin board is false. Tae-soo didn't hit me. Hee-seong did." Dong-min's words stunned Sue. She didn't expect that. Before the meeting, Tae-soo had threatened Dong-min, forcing him to put all the blame on Hee-seong. Otherwise, his grandmother would rot in prison. Hee-seong received the information and immediately sought out Dong-min. He asked, "Why did you do that?" Dong-min cried, admitting that he had been threatened by Tae-soo. He said that if Dong-min didn't listen, his grandmother would slowly die in prison. Dong-min's tears streamed down his cheeks as he spoke of the grievances he had endured all this time. After hearing it, Hee-seong wasn't angry or scolding. He just said gently, "It's not your fault." Those warm words made Dong-min feel even more guilty and sorry towards Hee-seong. He knew he had hurt the only friend who always stood by him. One evening, Hee-seong decided to return to school alone. He brought the key he found the other day, hoping it would unlock the secret in the grandfather clock. But when he tried, the key didn't fit. Just then, the school chairwoman passed by. She casually greeted Hee-seong with a concerned tone, as if she didn't know that he was the one who had snuck into the abandoned building the day before. She seemed very calm, as if nothing had happened. Hee-seong left, but the chairwoman approached, carefully examining the grandfather clock with a suspicious look. Meanwhile, the school board had convened an emergency meeting to decide how to handle the case involving student bullying and online gambling. Hee-seong was being put on trial and was at risk of being expelled. Teacher Sue, with all her determination, did everything she could to buy time, waiting for Hee-seong to make it to the board. And then, as expected, Hee-seong appeared in a dramatic scene. He drove up on a motorcycle, bringing a key witness with him. His appearance surprised the entire council. The witness Hee-seong brought was the one who could prove his innocence and expose Tae-soo's crimes before the entire trial board. Hee-seong produced a surprise witness, a white-haired guy who owned an illegal online gambling site. Faced with Hee-seong's thinly veiled threat, "If you don't tell the truth, I'll beat you until you're nothing but chum," he nervously confessed. He testified that he knew Tae-soo and that Tae-soo was a VIP client on the site. Tae-soo owed the company a lot of money, and to pay off his debt, he had lured more members to the website, even stealing other people's IDs to register them. The incident involving the old woman being taken to the police station was also orchestrated by Tae-soo. Hearing this testimony, Tae-soo frantically slammed the table, shouting that he was innocent. But Hee-seong paid no attention to his outburst. He simply stated calmly, "I never used violence against Dong-min. Everyone knows who really bullied Dong-min. It was someone who got students at school to join a gambling site, stole their relatives' IDs to commit crimes, all because he thought he was stronger. It was someone who mistreated others, someone who beat, stomped, and spat in their food, locked them in trash cans. That someone is you, you piece of garbage." Hee-seong's words, filled with fury, silenced the entire disciplinary council. However, lacking concrete evidence, Tae-soo continued to resist. He threatened Dong-min, trying to force him to blame Hee-seong. Although utterly terrified by the threats, Dong-min, before the council could make a final decision, summoned his courage and stood up to tell the truth. "Hee-seong isn't the one who bullied me. It was all Tae-soo. He made me take the blame for all the things he did to me. He even threatened my grandmother." Dong-min looked Tae-soo straight in the eye, his voice full of determination. "No matter how much you threaten me, the truth is still the truth." Hee-seong nodded slightly, then walked over and patted Dong-min on the shoulder reassuringly. "Thank you, that's enough. From now on, I'll take care of everything else." After saying that, he handed Miss Sue a USB drive. When it was played, all of Tae-soo's cruel actions and deeds were exposed for everyone to see. Witnesses and evidence, complete and clear, left no room for denial. Tae-soo, completely unhinged, lunged at Hee-seong and punched him. But Hee-seong didn't hesitate to return a knockout blow. Tae-soo's father, seeing this, tried to attack Hee-seong, but Miss Sue quickly intervened. With a precise strike, she took down the unreasonable parent instantly. Unbeknownst to everyone, to obtain the witness and evidence to expose Tae-soo, Hee-seong had single-handedly infiltrated the lair of the illegal gambling scammers. He walked right in, demanding to meet the gang leader to get all the videos related to Tae-soo. The underlings, confident in their numbers, brazenly challenged him, but after just a few punches and kicks, Hee-seong left them terrified and pale-faced. The boss tried to sneak up and attack him from behind, but Hee-seong's colleague bravely jumped in. Though enthusiastic, the colleague's skill was no match. Not only did he fail to hit the enemy, but he also managed to hurt himself. Finally, Hee-seong had to step in. One kick was all it took to knock the Tae-soo unconscious on the spot. After taking care of everything, the colleague rushed to help him gather all the useful evidence. It was thanks to this courage and decisiveness that all those cool scenes happened later. After the fight, Hee-seong had a cut on his lip. Miss Sue didn't hesitate to apply ointment to it. She was gentle and careful. Their eyes met, causing the teacher to blush shyly. Perhaps this will be the only romance in this dangerous, action-packed drama. The teacher felt uneasy about her attraction to a student, but she didn't know that Hee-seong was actually her age and was just on a mission. Hee-seong's action of reaching out and removing a flower petal from her hair only made Soo feel even more flustered and confused. To avoid damaging the school's reputation, the female chairman was forced to expel Soo. She also accelerated the search for the gold that the founding chairman had left behind. Dong-min's life gradually returned to normal. But Hee-seong urged him to continue the second ghost story that he had started, the story of the grandfather clock. Dong-min said that a long time ago there was a female student who was always ranked second because of her best friend, who was always ranked first. Blinded by envy, the female student heartlessly pushed her best friend, causing her to hit her head hard on the ground and die instantly. The killer's cold-bloodedness made everyone shudder. But that female student's life was not peaceful. Every time the grandfather clock struck midnight, she would see a red-eyed ghost appear. Not long after, the female student also died mysteriously. Listening to the terrifying ghost story, Hee-seong sat calmly, listening. In the darkness, using only flashlights, Dong-min's 3 teammates stood behind him, eavesdropping. This made Dong-min curious, and he asked why these guys were there. Hee-seong turned around startled, frightened by his colleagues' sudden appearance. He could only sigh, "These guys are such a pain, they're just giving me more of a heart attack." To avoid being exposed, Hee-seong quickly lied, saying that he was working a part-time job at the place. Meanwhile, Yu-young was shopping with Yi-na and noticed that Yi-na was interested in Hee-seong, her brother. The next day, when he got to school, Hee-seong still wanted to try the key in the grandfather clock, but he was still unsuccessful. His younger sister asked him to put up posters on the bulletin board to recruit members for the student council. Looking at the picture, Hee-seong realized that the clock in the photo was just off by a different time compared to the broken clock at school. Through his sister's story, he learned that there were 2 identical clocks at school, one hanging here and one in the student council room. Understanding the situation, Hee-seong went to the student council room, but ran into Yi-na. She said that only members could enter the room. Hee-seong decided to ask Miss Soo-ae about the requirements for joining the student council. She opened a book and listed them. Your most recent GPA had to be in the top 10 of the entire school. You had to get 100 signatures of recommendation from current members, and finally, the current president of the student council would make the final decision. The most difficult problem for Hee-seong right now was how to get 100 signatures of recommendation to join the student council. Soo's 2 best friends, since he was expelled, had fallen on hard times, ostracized by their friends, fearful and regretful. They came to apologize to Dong-min. So, along with Dong-min and those 2 students, Hee-seong only had 3 signatures. His academic performance was also poor, which frustrated his teammates. Hee-seong's uncle, who was also the team leader, knew that the exam was only 7 days away. He decided he would take care of getting the signatures, while Hee-seong definitely had to focus on this exam. The strict uncle reminded him, "You have to try to get into the top 10, or everything will be ruined." The signature-getting plan that his teammates came up with left Hee-seong speechless. They didn't use the normal approach, but jumped around excitedly, making him dance along and give out free bread to the students. Signature after signature was written, and the atmosphere became cheerful and lively. After a day of baking bread, writing songs, and dancing exhaustingly, the uncle brought Hee-seong all 100 signatures. He seriously reminded him, "Now you have to focus on the exam. This is your last chance." This group of 4 was truly going all out for the mission. They were excitedly preparing for the next challenge. Then suddenly, Hee-seong's younger sister called, constantly yelling and threatening, "If you try to join the student council, I'll tell everyone the truth." This girl was blatantly blocking her brother's investigation for her own personal gain. But that didn't make Hee-seong flinch. He still worked diligently, constantly striving to do well on the exam. The pressure weighed heavily on his shoulders, but he knew that if he could pass the exam and get into the top 10, things would have a chance to change. Hee-seong was at school when he suddenly received a call from his military teammates, asking him to report for duty immediately. Out of options, and only having a day, he had no other choice but to fake being sick and call the school to get a day off. After completing his tiring duty in the military, He lay sprawled on the sofa, thinking he could rest. Then Miss Sua called, "I heard you're sick. I'll bring you some porridge and medicine." Hee Seong's heart pounded. He immediately jumped up, changed his clothes, and drove frantically home. His teammates, hearing the news, also panicked and drove crazily over to rearrange his empty apartment. Everyone was going crazy, panicking, arguing loudly, afraid that the plan would be exposed. The team leader calmly observed the surrounding houses and then ordered, "Within 25 minutes, before Miss Sue arrives, we have to scour the neighborhood to borrow everything a single high school student living alone would need." Hee Seong forgot to bring his uniform home, so the team leader ordered 2 teammates to find extra clothes for the day. He would look for a TV, laptop, and other household appliances. The operation to fill the empty room happened in a dramatic fashion. Everyone tried their best to avoid mistakes. But Miss Sue arrived 5 minutes earlier than expected, causing the whole group to panic and freak out again, like overturned ant colony. Seeing Miss Sue ringing the doorbell repeatedly, his teammates scrambled to hide in the closet. Hee Seong had to peek out, drenched in sweat from the continuous action. He quickly reached for the rice porridge, but his fluster caused him to spill it all over the teacher. The situation became even more complicated when the teacher wanted to use the restroom. Left with no choice, Hee Seong had to let her in. While the teacher was in the bathroom, Hee Seong opened the closet door, intending to tell his teammates to get out. But just then, the teacher came out, causing him to slam the door shut, accidentally pinching his teammate's hand. He quickly explained, "I was just putting clothes in the closet to change." The kind teacher picked up the clothes and helped him put them in the closet, but then she suddenly grabbed him, startling them both. Hee Seong quickly made up a reason, "I'll walk you home. I have a doctor's appointment I need to get to." The teacher offered to come with him. But just then, she slipped on a roller on the floor and tumbled into Hee Seong. Her hands instinctively grabbed onto his collar, and they both fell sprawling onto the floor, their lips touching. In the closet, a teammate was about to sneeze. Not wanting to be discovered, the female agent kissed her male colleague to suppress the noise. But all their efforts were for naught when the male agent went limp and collapsed out of the closet. All 3 of them were exposed, standing in the closet, to the shock and bewilderment of Miss Sue. Hee Seong feared his identity would be revealed right then and there. The 2 teammates still in the closet quickly explained, "We just wanted to stand in the closet to surprise Hee Seong." The seasoned team leader quickly introduced himself as the owner of the shop where Hee Seong was working part-time, and the other 2 were employees. Miss Sue, still bewildered, bowed her head and introduced herself as Hee Seong's homeroom teacher. But the mess in the house and the chaotic situation made her suspicious. She relentlessly fired off sharp questions, like a real heavy-hitting detective. "If Hee Seong is sick today and just staying home, why would you guys be hiding in the closet to surprise him?" Her questions left the team speechless, their heads spinning, unsure of how to explain it convincingly. In a moment of desperation, Hee Seong cleverly pretended to faint, hoping it would distract the teacher. A hilarious charade began to unfold before the teacher's eyes. The female agent kept berating the teacher. "How could you be so heartless?" Meanwhile, the team leader quickly carried Hee Seong away, creating an even more chaotic scene. The next day, while proctoring the exam, Miss Sue couldn't stop thinking about the strange events at Hee Seong's house. Deep down, she harbored suspicions about Hee Seong's true identity. When the bell rang, signaling the end of the exam, Hee Seong, like any other student, went up to turn in his paper, but always avoided the teacher's gaze. The embarrassment and confusing feelings about the accidental kiss the day before made him afraid to face her. That evening, Yu Young, dwelling on the kiss Ma Young gave him earlier, was lost in thought and wanted to express his feelings. But Ma Young slapped him a few times. "Don't get any silly ideas. Let's go, quick." The 4 of them met up again, eating and discussing their plan. They feared that Miss Sue would discover some clue and their plan would fall apart. The accidental kiss with Miss Sue the other day left Hee Seong with a very confusing feeling. He felt embarrassed and wanted to avoid her. Meanwhile, Miss Sue became increasingly suspicious of Hee Seong's identity. She constantly presented her reasoning and theories to her colleagues, but no one readily believed her. After drinking heavily, Miss Sue went home. In her drunken stupor, she kept ringing the doorbell. But instead of ringing her own house, she accidentally rang Hee Seong's actual home. Hee Seong saw the teacher on the doorbell monitor and was utterly shocked. He faked his voice through the system. "You have the wrong house. I'm not your mother." But Miss Sue, being drunk, didn't know up from down. She kept ringing Hee Seong's doorbell, causing his mother to see her and have to go over and drag her away. Seeing that the teacher had gone far away, Hee Seong dared to open the door and look after her, and was surprised to realize that the teacher's house was so close to his. He was incredibly worried. He had to do his best to carry out his mission and keep his secret from the teacher. The pressure weighed heavily on him, making him restless. The next morning, Hee Seong's legs were shaking uncontrollably as he waited for the test results. If he didn't make it into the top 10, all the hard work he and his teammates had put in would be for nothing. He went to receive the results with a heart full of trepidation. Meanwhile, his teammates were anxiously waiting, glued to their phones for a call from Hee Seong. When the phone finally rang, one of them answered, but there was only silence on the other end. They immediately feared the worst, their hearts pounding in their chests. But then, Hee Seong, who was sitting on the rooftop, looking up at the sky with pride, announced, "We've done it. I ranked 10th in the entire school." A cheer of joy erupted. The whole group embraced, expressing their extreme happiness. The joy of victory spread throughout the room. This time, Hee Seong's younger sister ranked first in the school again. Yina, the student council president, came in second. It was the first time Yina had lost, and she couldn't help but feel surprised, even a little envious. And that's how Yina found out that the group was laughing at her. Her mother, who was the school's chairperson, immediately summoned her for questioning. To speed up the completion of the mission, Hee Seong didn't hesitate to use his charm on Yina. He gave her a glass of water, along with a piece of bamboo, just like how people used to drink water in the olden days. But that action became a laughingstock in the eyes of the other students. Just when he thought the plan would fail, Yina actually fell for Hee Seong. She seemed very interested in his attention. Meanwhile, teacher Sue was still trying to uncover Hee Seong's true identity. She called his middle school to inquire about him. But Hee Seong's teammates had anticipated this and impersonated a teacher to successfully cover it up. Even so, the teacher still sensed that something was amiss. The team leader immediately called Hee Seong to inform him of the situation and told him to be extra cautious to avoid unforeseen complications, a direct translation of Derm Day L letter 1 AFM M letter 189 NG. Hee Seong decided to act quickly. He went to the student council room to greet all the members, then deliberately lingered. Seizing the opportunity, he secretly used the key to open the grandfather clock. But just then, Yina suddenly appeared, startling him into a strange pose. Yina suggested that they go out to dinner that night and even said she would bring Yu Young along. Hee Seong immediately agreed, even though he was worried about his unfinished plan. While the group was discussing the plan, a colleague of teacher Sue came to buy something. But buying something was just an excuse. The real reason was to record the entire scene inside the restaurant and send it to teacher Sue. Even though the colleague kept saying that she didn't see anything suspicious, Sue still felt that something was wrong. In the evening, the date took place. Hee Seong always showed concern for his younger sister Yu Young, but in Yina's eyes, she thought he had feelings for Yu Young. Through the conversation, Hee Seong learned that his sister was always being bossed around by Yina like a servant, which made him feel very uncomfortable. After Yina left, Yu Young confessed everything to him and told him not to interfere in her life at school. Although Yina lived a life like a real young lady, she was always living in fear. The pressure from her mother was constant, forcing her to always be at the top of the school. She was only allowed to sleep 4 hours a day, but her mother was forcing her to only sleep 2 hours to study really hard, preparing to inherit her business, not wanting to lose the opportunity. After dinner, Hee Seong decided to return to the student council room. He tried the key in the grandfather clock, and sure enough, it opened. He rummaged around inside for a long time, but found nothing different. Just then, a piece of paper was thrown through the crack in the door. Hee Seong immediately opened the door but didn't see anyone, only a line that made his face turn pale. "Pleased to meet you, Agent Young Hee Seong." He immediately took the paper to the director. Someone knew his true identity, and the fact that they sent this letter proved that they knew exactly what he was doing and where he was. The director affirmed that this was a secret mission, not reported to the higher-ups. If it was exposed, it was because the subordinates on the team had messed up. Hee-seong wanted to check the CCTV footage, but nothing was recorded. The person behind it all, none other than the school's chairperson. She knew everything and was just lying in wait. Hee-seong stared at the piece of paper, and countless questions arose in his mind. Who is behind all of this? Just then, he received a phone call from the security guard. A mysterious voice rang out, "Agent Young Hee-seong, do you remember my voice?" The words startled him, and he was about to press the record button. But the voice on the other end immediately warned, "Don't try to record, or things will get much worse." He arranged to meet him alone on the school rooftop to talk. Hee-seong had no choice but to go by himself in the pitch-black night. The chimes of the grandfather clock endlessly rang, striking 12, creating an eerie atmosphere. Suddenly, a body fell from above, landing right in front of him. It was the security guard. Before a masked figure strangled him and pushed him off, the security guard had desperately clung to a notebook, refusing to let it fall into the other's hands. He had been pushed off and died instantly. Hee-seong turned to look back. The scene before him was truly haunting. He picked up a small black notebook from the security guard's hand, with 2 stars printed on the cover. Looking up at the rooftop, he could still see the silhouette of the masked figure standing there. Without hesitation, Hee-seong climbed up to the rooftop with all his might. Using his skills as a professional agent, he quickly brought the figure to the ground with just a few punches and kicks. But the masked man quickly grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it into Hee-seong's face, using the opportunity to fight back and try to snatch the notebook. Hee-seong reversed the situation, restraining him with a gun, preparing to rip off the mask to see his face. But at that moment, an unexpected noise distracted him. The masked man seized the opportunity and successfully escaped. That masked man was none other than an agent of the female chairman. His purpose today was to retrieve the notebook and eliminate all witnesses. Clutching the notebook tightly, Hee-seong stormed straight into the director's office, demanding that everyone leave, leaving only the 2 of them face to face. Hee-seong's mind was in turmoil, filled with fear and anger. He held up the notebook, his voice trembling. "This is my father's notebook, Agent Young Hee-hyun, who disappeared 22 years ago. Answer me accurately and clearly. Why did this notebook appear at Byung-moon High School?" The director said nothing, only offering a sinister smile. This fueled Hee-seong's anger even further. He grabbed him by the throat, pushing him against the wall, his voice filled with rage. "Why did my father's notebook appear at that school? Talk." The director gasped for air. "Because Agent Young Hee-hyun's last mission was exactly the same as your current mission. He was assigned to find the hidden gold treasure at Byung-moon High School. Now, I can't say for sure whether he's alive or dead." The director's nonchalant tone infuriated Hee-seong to the core. He wanted to punch him. But reason prevailed. Hearing his uncle shouting, Hee-seong angrily grabbed the notebook and left the room with a heavy heart. On the rooftop, his uncle was constantly scolding Hee-seong. "Why were you about to punch the director? If you dare lay a hand on him, everything will collapse." But Hee-seong didn't care. He just asked back, his voice full of pain, tears streaming down his face. "Did you know that my father disappeared while carrying out this mission? My father disappeared when I was only 9 years old, and only when I was 31 years old did he reappear in this way. I'm his son, and I don't even know what mission he was on when he disappeared. But that damn organization knew everything, and they kept silent." Hee-seong decided he couldn't do it anymore. He returned home, holding his father's notebook in his hand. Every line of text reminded him of his missing father. Childhood memories flooded back, causing his heart to ache. The next morning, at school, the crime scene horrified all the students and teachers. The teachers were forced to remain calm to reassure the students. Hee-seong wasn't at school, and therefore couldn't attend the student council meeting. At the meeting, Yina asked Yu-young about the relationship between her and Hee-seong, but Yu-young didn't know how to answer appropriately. She just remained silent, flustered. Meanwhile, the team leader and Hee-seong were lost in a void. Their moods were terrible, their hearts full of bitterness. They wondered how to dispel the clouds that were enveloping them. Hee Seong sat alone, staring at the notebook. Each of his father's words was like a reminder of his silent sacrifice. Where will this deception lead? Will the gold hidden in Byungmoon High School be found to end this bloody search? After many sleepless nights, Hee Seong decided to continue the mission. He felt like his father was cheering him on, urging him to find something important. With fervent encouragement from his teammates, he returned to school as if nothing had happened. Hee Seong once again snuck into the student council room, relying on information from his father's old notebook. He adjusted the pendulum clock to the 12 o'clock position and then turned it back. Sure enough, the pendulum gave a slight vibration. He quickly took out his phone to record it, capturing every detail. When he finished, he made sure to set the clock back to the correct time. Just then, Teacher Sua walked in, interrogating him about the death of security guard Kim the previous night. She was the one who had been standing behind the glass, witnessing the whole thing. Luckily, she managed to escape undetected. Sue, her face full of menace, relentlessly pressured Hee Seong to reveal his true identity. Otherwise, she would report him to the police. With no other plausible explanation, Hee Seong had no choice but to tell the truth. He locked the door to the room and said, "I'm an undercover agent for the National Intelligence Service. I'm here to find the treasure that Emperor Gong left behind." His words startled and shocked Sue. Despite her asking many questions, Hee Seong coldly offered her two choices. Either she actively cooperated for the sake of national security, fulfilling her duty as a citizen, or she could leak confidential information of the National Intelligence Service and face severe legal penalties, violating national security laws. She could be sentenced to more than 10 years in prison. "I'll give you a day to think about it. Give me your answer tomorrow," Hee Seong said, and then left, leaving Sua in a state of panic, fear, and unease. She wondered to herself why she would have to go to prison. That evening, Hee Seong went to the meeting place with his teammates, presenting all the evidence he had found at the school. Security guard Kim, even though he was just an ordinary citizen, had known a lot of important information. His murder confirmed one thing: someone was deliberately trying to obstruct the investigation. Hee Seong informed his teammates that Teacher Sua knew about everything and that he had threatened her to keep it a secret. Immediately, team leader Gong and Mai shouted, worried that he would be imprisoned for threatening a civilian. They insisted that he apologize and ask the teacher to help keep the secret, not use threats to cover things up. Hee Seong had no choice but to comply. He went to Sue's mother's restaurant, bowed his head in apology, and asked for her help in completing the mission. Thinking about the accomplishments he would achieve in the future if he completed the mission, Teacher Sua happily agreed. Before he died, security guard Kim had met with the chairwoman and revealed that Agent Jung Yi Hyan had recorded a lot of credible evidence in his notebook. That evidence would solve many mysteries at Byungmoon High School. These words made the chairwoman uneasy and suspicious, and she demanded that he hand over the notebook, but security guard Kim firmly refused, leading to the unfortunate scene on the rooftop. Hee Seong continued to look for the piano room, the scene of a sad story. A male student in the piano club had a female student as his duet partner. One day, the female student found out she was pregnant and told the truth to the male student. But he responded with utter coldness. The female student lost all hope and chose to end her life. Since then, the piano in the music room has been playing itself. The male student looked in the mirror and saw the face of the female student and was terrified. While reading this story, Hee Seong was interrupted by Teacher Sua walking by and quietly reading along. She screamed in fright, startling Hee Seong. He asked the teacher if she knew where that piano was being kept. Teacher Sua immediately remembered seeing it in the principal's office. To get into that room, the only way was to participate in the 24th Byungmoon Night Festival. But reality is always harsh, and difficulties are everywhere. Because he was absent from school the previous day without a reason, he had 20 competitive points deducted, so he had no opportunity to participate. Out of options, Hee Seong had to humble himself and ask Teacher Sua to figure out a way for him to participate in the festival. His teammates, upon learning the reason, were speechless and had nothing to say to him and felt frustrated. Teacher Sua went into the diner, carrying a notice for the selection of the school's representative. If successful, 25 points would be added. Hearing this, all the teammates focused their eyes on Hee Seong. despite his fierce protests. Thus, the photoshoot to select the representative took place. Hee-seong, with his awkward and stiff face, didn't have a single good photo. Teacher Sua had to drag him to another spot and taught him each movement. The result was beyond expectations, as everyone stared at him with wide eyes and open mouths as he posed. After the successful photoshoot with beautiful and captivating photos, Hee-seong sighed in relief. Hee-seong and Miss Sua went to drink together at her mother's bar. There, they opened up to each other, sharing stories from the past and present. They vowed to work hard together to succeed in selecting the school's representative face. After a satisfying meal and drinks, they headed home. Suddenly, it started to rain, and Su-ae's mother offered to bring an umbrella. Abruptly, she called out to Oh-bong to turn back and get it. Hee-seong, hearing the familiar name, froze. He wanted to confirm it and, with a happy smile, asked if that was her real name. Sua casually replied, "Yes, that's my birth name." Seeing him smile, she assumed he was making fun of her old-fashioned name and stormed off, not wanting to walk home with him. It turned out that Miss Sua was the same girl Hee-seong used to play with years ago, the one who even wanted to marry him when they were both very young. Hee-seong just kept smiling dazedly, unable to sleep. The next morning, he got to school early and found Miss Sua cleaning while listening to music, even dancing a little, which made him chuckle. She was happily singing when she turned around and saw Hee-seong standing there. Sua was so embarrassed that her face turned completely red, and she quickly avoided his teasing. The teacher promised to do her best in the school representative selection process to help him complete his task. The election was held with a vote among the school teachers. Yina was the representative female face, and nobody dared to change that. As for the male representative face, the vice principal intended to choose Hyun-jun, but Miss Sua immediately stood up and objected, providing reasons to ensure a fair election. "We should have a secret ballot, and the votes should be irrevocable," the vice principal reluctantly agreed. And then, finally, all the efforts, dedication, and attempts paid off. Hee-seong officially became the school's male representative. Everyone was overjoyed and excited. Miss Sua seemed completely smitten with Hee-seong, constantly daydreaming and fantasizing about him. While celebrating his new role as the school's representative, Hee-seong was getting ready to go to a celebratory dinner with his friends when he saw his younger sister, Yoo-young, carrying a heavy stack of books. He immediately rushed over to help, and they sat down together in the school park to rest. Hee-seong sincerely apologized to Yoo-young for interfering in her school life without understanding anything. He didn't want his sister to be hurt because of him. Yoo-young wasn't upset at all, only gently saying, "Yina isn't as bad as you think. She's just very tired. I'm the only one she can vent her anger to and confide in, so please don't hate her." After speaking, she returned to class, leaving Hee-seong with much to ponder. Just then, he received a message from his team. The investigation into Kim Hyun-ho had concluded, and they wanted him to meet in person to discuss it. Hee-seong texted Miss Sua to take leave and hurried to the meeting location at a sandwich shop. The discussion revolved around the death of the security guard, which was ruled a suicide. Hee-seong told everyone that the basement in the old school wasn't Myung-juwoo's room, but his father's. This information stunned the team. To find out whether Chairwoman Sezu had found the gold treasure or was still searching for it, there was a shocking secret behind it. The old recording, the pendulum clock that Hee-seong brought back, had been meticulously analyzed by the agents. The results showed that it was a four-hand duet, meaning a piece played by two people at the same time. The captain asked if anyone knew how to play the piano. Everyone was clueless, implying they didn't, which made him angry, and he raised his voice. Just then, Miss Sua walked in and raised her hand, saying, "I will." The team was surprised. The captain quietly pleaded, "Teacher, help us. You are not only Hee-seong's close companion, but also the school's personal affairs officer and a person of honor for the team. If successful, you will be commended." Miss Sua immediately agreed, but in return, she requested that the team commit to supporting her becoming a full-time teacher at the school. Byung-moon, the captain, was shocked, but with no other option, he had to sign off on the deal. The next day, when she saw the principal arrive at school, Miss Sua immediately called Hee-seong to inform him. To get into the chairwoman's office, they needed to get the principal's fingerprint. Miss Sua used all her strength to maintain her composure and face the principal. She asked to borrow the book he was holding, with the aim of letting Hee Seong get his fingerprint. After that, she also had to use all her wit to teach Hee Seong how to play the piano. But from the intimate touches and interactions with Sue, Hee Seong felt confused, unable to focus on his work. His mind kept lingering on the close moments with the teacher, making the piano practice more difficult than ever. Because Miss Sue is an honorary field agent, team leader Bo invited her to tour the secret base of operations located inside a sandwich shop. The shop was temporarily closed because the owners, a married couple, had returned home. During the mission briefing, the team leader assigned Hee Seong and Miss Sue, explaining that they couldn't execute the plan alone. Young Hoon would join them in the operational zone, while the team leader and Ma Young would provide support as needed. However, since the students recognize everyone, it would be safer if they didn't go together. Every year, the chairwoman attends a meet and greet event for parents in the reception room. This is the only opportunity to access her office while she's away. There's only one entrance to the room, and it can only be opened with a fingerprint scan. However, the system immediately sends entry and exit information to Chairwoman Myung-ju's device and logs it in the office's system. Even if they reach the piano, if the intrusion is discovered, both Hee Seong and Miss Sue will be expelled from the school. They need to block the information from reaching the chairwoman's device. That was the entire plan, to be executed tomorrow. Everything was prepared, and spirits were high, aiming to complete the mission as quickly as possible. The next day, the ceremony took place. Everyone followed the plan. But whether or not they would succeed depended on luck. Hee Seong and Miss Sue were dressed neatly and elegantly for the event. But the funniest thing was that Young Hoon and Ma Young were eating and drinking like they were running away from someone, leaving the team leader speechless with exasperation. Meanwhile, Hee Seong and Sue were like a couple on a date, their youthful exuberance so radiant that the team leader wanted to scream, wondering if they were here for a mission or a comedy show. When the chairwoman moved upstairs, the team leader announced, "Young Hoon, go to the control room and cut the power. The cameras will shut down, and Hee Seong and Sue need to get into the chairwoman's office within 3 minutes before security checks." When Young Hoon cut the power, Hee Seong and Sue began their mission. All of the chairwoman's staff rushed to resolve the issue. Hee Seong knocked out one guard who was about to enter the room, but the power suddenly came back on, and the plan was foiled. The team leader frantically asked, why was he there in less than 3 minutes? Out of options, Ma Young had to play her secret card. Young Hoon, disguised as a parent, yelled into the security office, "Why is there a power outage during such an important event? I fell down the stairs, and I'm covered in bruises." He crawled around on the floor, feigning injury to distract them so Hee Seong and Sue could enter undetected. When the first attempt failed, Ma Young went in alone, loudly slapping Young Hoon across the face and dramatically exclaiming, "How could you do this to me? What are you going to do about the baby I'm carrying?" The scene left everyone speechless. As one guard turned to investigate, Ma Young pulled Young Hoon in for a kiss. The 2 security guards stood there dumbfounded, forgetting to monitor the cameras. After many failed attempts, Hee Seong heard someone approaching and grabbed Sue's hand, intending to flee. But suddenly, they were surrounded. In this situation, the only option was to fight. Hee Seong combined HP swordplay, and with just a few punches and kicks, he took down all the Tsu lackeys. But there was one guy as strong as an ox. He kicked Hee Seong, causing him to fall. He immediately went to inject a syringe of anesthetic into the back of his neck. Seeing him still struggling, Truong passed out and she injected him one more time. After clearing out the people, Hee Seong tried the last fingerprint scan and successfully opened the chairwoman's office. They both played the piano together, but nothing happened. The team leader told them to leave immediately. Hee Seong stood up, went to the computer, and discovered a folder named Operation Youth Mission Plan. He clicked on it and was horrified to find that all of their plans and information about each member were known to the chairwoman. Hee Seong read each line of information on the computer, his eyes bloodshot with anger. He knew that he and the team had been used, but he decided not to tell his teammates. Sitting in the car, the complex thoughts made him absent-minded and unresponsive to his surroundings. His uncle sensed that something was very different about him since he left the chairwoman's office, But Hee Seong brushed it off and asked to get out of the car early. Back home, he wrote down all the names connected to this investigation, trying to figure out who the mole was. Suddenly, he stopped at the name Hyung-bi, an unsettling suspicion bubbling up in his mind. Meanwhile, Miss Suo was also trying to find a difference. Why wasn't there any music on the do note? After some digging, using her sharp intuition, she found a coded message: "The one who holds the jewel, when facing the red gold sun, shall shine." Overjoyed, she immediately called Hee Seong to deliver the information she had found, but he didn't pick up. She decided to go to the convenience store where she saw Hee Seong buying things. Pulling him aside, she said proudly, "Agent Hee Seong, compliment me. I cracked the mystery of the third horror story." She handed him the answer, expecting him to be elated. But contrary to her expectations, Hee Seong just said indifferently, "You worked hard, thank you very much." Then he walked away, leaving Suo very annoyed. She yelled at him to come with her for a few drinks. During their drinking session, Hee Seong confided in her, "Chairwoman Seung-yi is the one who put me on this mission. I've been used to hunt down the golden key. I'm just a pawn on the chessboard she's set up within the organization. There's also a mole. I can't trust anyone." Seeing him upset, Miss Suo gently comforted him. "I hope you don't think you're all alone. Suspecting everyone around you is very distressing. Just find the one person you can't trust, and the rest will be your allies. And besides, I'm still here." After drinking, Hee Seong and Miss Suo walked home together in the quiet of the night. Hee Seong candidly revealed, "I'm the little boy from your class that you said you liked and proposed to back then." That statement startled Sue, throwing her into a state of disarray, speechless. She never imagined that Hee Seong was young Hee Seong, the boy who lived next door to her way back when. Her mind was spinning, her heart was pounding, and her emotions were surging uncontrollably. Meanwhile, in the student council room, Yi-na angrily confronted Hyun-jun. "Why did you win the science report competition before it even happened? What did your dad give you? Why did he make you keep it a secret?" As it turned out, during the festival night, Yi-na had been in the student council room and overheard the entire conversation between Seung-yi and his father. He had paid to get Seung high scores in his subjects and to be nominated for many awards. He also gave Seung-yi a business card and told him to keep it a secret. Back in the present, Hyun-jun coldly told Yi-na, "This is all thanks to the chairwoman. Since I was in 10th grade." Seeing Yi-na about to go talk to her mother, Seung scoffed, telling her will just be embarrassing. "Student council president. You're the most favored one of all. All your first place wins in competitions haven't been because of your skills. Since you are student council president, your mother bought the wins for you. You idiot." That statement hit Yi-na like a bolt of lightning. She couldn't believe she had been living a lie for so many years. And the person who found out about this secret was none other than Miss Sue. She picked up the business card that X dropped during the festival. Out of curiosity, she researched it on the web and discovered it was a grade-buying, cheating organization. This information shocked and horrified her. She immediately gave the information to Hee Seong, asking him to investigate, but Hee Seong gave the excuse that his agency was too busy and refused her request. Hee Seong's busyness stemmed from the fact that he had secretly attached a GPS tracker to the chairwoman's car to track her. All day, he just stared at the phone screen, watching where the chairwoman went. Without Hee Seong's help, Miss Sue had to investigate on her own. But no matter how much she researched, she couldn't gather any information from the website. As it turned out, Chairwoman Myung-ju had taken Seung and his father out to eat and openly told them the whole truth. She revealed that she had ordered her subordinates to delete all documents related to the grade cheating case. But this conversation had been bugged by Hee Seong. He learned that the chairwoman would give Miss Sue a lesson and immediately rushed to the office to find her. Seeing that Sue was safe and sound, he sighed in relief. Realizing that the school was becoming dangerous, Hee Seong took Sue back to his place to investigate together. The two of them dove headfirst into finding out who was involved in the corruption of buying and selling grades. Afterwards, the chairwoman learned that Seung-yi had revealed the truth about buying points for Yi-na. Enraged, she stormed into the restroom, her face a mask of cold fury, and relentlessly punched the wall until she coughed up blood. While washing her hands, she coldly stated, "Your damn mouth is always causing trouble." Despite Seung Yi kneeling and begging for forgiveness, she remained unmoved. The next morning, Hee Seong arrived at the office and presented his colleagues with information and a list of individuals benefiting from the point rigging scheme. He wanted to stop this project in order to protect the Korean education system. However, during the discussion, his uncle found out and dragged him up to the rooftop. He berated Hee Seong, "Why have you forgotten your original mission and gotten involved in this corruption? Your case is about finding Emperor Gung's gold, not about students or projects. I'm talking to you not as Yu Young's father, but as your superior. Focus on finding the gold. How long are you planning to stay there? Are you planning on graduating from that assignment?" Their exchange was overheard by the director. He immediately ordered both of them back to the office. But Hee Seong's entire plan and investigation progress had been leaked to the chairwoman by an inside informant. While in class, a text message arrived, making Hee Seong's face flush with anger. It was an order from his superiors to halt the plan and conclude the assignment this week. Because he wanted to investigate and clarify everything, Hee Seong, not wanting to be dismissed, asked teacher Sua to persuade the chairwoman to use the gold as bait. "If I know where the gold is, the chairwoman definitely won't fire me." Hee Seong sought every opportunity to eat with the chairwoman, feigning naivete and asking, "Chairwoman, has the school gymnasium ever been renovated?" The seemingly simple question caused the chairwoman to freeze. She frowned, pondered for a moment, and replied, "I don't think so." Hee Seong smirked arrogantly, "You know, I'm very curious. Ming Hai has a lot of interesting stories." With that, he got up and left, leaving behind curiosity and growing anger in the chairwoman's mind. The bait has been taken. Hee Seong and teacher Sua continued their investigation. Tracking GPS, he discovered the chairwoman had gone to a house he knew well, the place where she lived. Meanwhile, Sue, after collecting and analyzing a series of information about the corruption, decided to go to Hee Seong's house. She rang the doorbell, assuming he wasn't home yet, but the door was already unlocked. A sense of unease washed over her as she entered, only to find the house ransacked. Everything was in disarray, belongings scattered everywhere. She went deeper into the rooms, and suddenly, she came face to face with a masked figure. He raised his hand to his mouth, signaling her to be quiet. Just then, Hee Seong drove up to the house. He walked slowly up the stairs, sensing something was wrong. Entering the room, he was shocked to see the messy house, the belongings strewn about. Suddenly, he noticed Sua lying unconscious on the floor. His heart pounding, Hee Seong frantically ran to her, repeatedly calling her name, but received no response. In a desperate situation, Hee Seong rushed Sue to the hospital. He panicked when he saw the deep wound in her abdomen, blood flowing continuously. His mind went blank, and a sense of emptiness and helplessness overwhelmed him. He collapsed to the floor, his head spinning, unable to believe what had just happened. It turned out that earlier, when the masked figure had signaled Sue to be quiet, she had relentlessly questioned him. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Sue immediately grabbed her phone to call for help, but he threatened her with a knife. In the struggle, he accidentally stabbed her in the abdomen. Panicked, he quickly fled, leaving Sue in critical condition. Back in the present, the doctors had managed to save Sue. Her mother had also arrived at the hospital, anxiously sitting beside her daughter, comforting her. Hee Seong's colleagues, upon hearing the news, immediately rushed over, anxiously asking how he was and reassuring him, "We've taken DNA samples. We'll have results soon." Hee Seong was downcast, but his mood was still heavy. He could only nod and say a few short sentences before getting up, wanting to go outside to get some air and calm down after such a massive shock. Hee Seong's uncle noticed his distress and came over to inquire and advise him to go home and rest. But due to being too sad and annoyed, Hee Seong snapped, "I told you I'm fine." His eyes were red, his voice trembling. The uncle understood his mood and stepped back to give him some space to calm down. Sitting next to Sue, Hee Seong was filled with sadness, apologizing repeatedly. "I'm so sorry. I couldn't protect you when it mattered most." Just then, Sue woke up after her surgery. She looked at him, smiled weakly, and said, "If you feel that guilty, then you better treat me right from now on." Those words filled Hee Seong with immense joy. He immediately stood up, anxiously asking, "Are you okay? I was so worried about you." Sua then told him about the information she had uncovered. The person responsible for the grade rigging at school was Mr. Lee Jun-ho, the math teacher. At that moment, Hee-seong's teammate called with news. The DNA results confirmed that the masked man from that day was Hyun-ho. Because Hee-seong had the speakerphone on, Sua also heard and was completely shocked. Meanwhile, at school, the female students, noticing Hee-seong's absence, started gossiping. They speculated that teacher Sua was sick, and that Hee-seong was the one who took her to the hospital. Yi-na was also surprised to hear the news. Many people even suspected that the two had a special relationship, but Yu-young immediately objected. "It's probably just a coincidence. You guys shouldn't speculate like that. It affects people a lot." In a dark room, a yellow light cast shadows on the walls filled with documents and notes. He began analyzing every minute detail of the robbery that had occurred in his house. With sharp reasoning and keen deduction skills, he gradually unveiled the mystery. The intruder hadn't ransacked the room looking for money or valuables, but for something more important. And then, Hee-seong suddenly remembered that the notebook with the 2 stars on the cover, the one his dad had left behind, was missing. He immediately guessed that the only person who would want that notebook was Chairwoman Myung-ju. Sure enough, all the clues led to her. Teacher Jun-ho, looking anxious, arrived at the chairwoman's office, handed her the notebook, and demanded that she keep her promise. Ensure he wouldn't be implicated in the grade rigging scandal and wouldn't be forced to continue doing dirty work. But Myung-ju just laughed mockingly. "You stab people in the back and still drone on about promises? Are you a sociopath?" Jun-ho, although panicked, remained firm. "I don't care about the contents of the notebook or Hee-seong's real identity. Just keep your promise. If I get caught, the person who'll be in the most trouble is you." Finally, the chairwoman nodded in agreement, ordering Jun-ho to return to class. Holding the notebook in her hand, Myung-ju hurriedly flipped through the pages, hoping to find the information she needed. But when she read the words, "the 4th horror story," she suddenly remembered Hee-seong's previous question. "Has the school ever renovated the gymnasium, Hyun-jun?" That question infuriated her, because only Hee-seong could know the answer. Enraged, she threw the notebook away, feeling that all her efforts had been in vain. Immediately, she called the principal, demanding that he find the 4th horror story no matter what and expel Hee-seong from school. Meanwhile, Hee-seong's teammates Mi-young and Young-hoon were tasked with tailing teacher Jun-ho. They discovered the principal meeting with Jun-ho at a deserted junkyard. The situation turned critical when the principal ordered his men to inject Jun-ho with a tranquilizer and planned to throw him into a shredder. Mi-young immediately called Hee-seong, but he knew he wouldn't make it in time. Without hesitation, Mi-young and Young-hoon decided to act. However, with their cat-scratch martial arts skills, they were quickly defeated in just a few seconds. Both were locked in a cargo container with Jun-ho, facing the threat of being crushed. In their darkest hour, as the shredder began to operate, the desperate screams of Mi-young and Young-hoon echoed in the silent space. They struggled, trying to escape the cargo container that was gradually being crushed. But then, from a distance, a car horn blared, shattering the tense atmosphere. Hee-seong had arrived just in time. His car sped forward like a savior. His eyes flashed with determination as he saw his teammates in a life-or-death situation. Hee-seong, with his toned physique honed from the military, didn't hesitate to jump into the fray. His powerful, precise punches knocked the principal's men down one by one. However, while Hee-seong was busy fighting, the principal seized the opportunity to press the button to start the shredder. The cargo container began to sink, the windows shattered, everything turned chaotic. Seeing the container being crushed, Hee-seong went crazy. He charged at the principal, but the principal was incredibly strong. The principal's punches and kicks sent Hee-seong crashing to the ground. But he didn't give up. Meanwhile, the 3 people inside the cargo container had flattened themselves against the floor, trying to avoid the debris and waiting for rescue. Hee-seong seemed to gain renewed strength. He stood up and relentlessly unleashed a barrage of blows upon the principal. Finally, the principal collapsed unconscious in an instant. Hee-seong ran to the control panel and stopped the shredder. He had won facing the entire group alone and saving his teammates. Meanwhile, Chairwoman Myung-ju was pacing anxiously. She kept calling the headmaster, but he wasn't answering. She probably realized the situation was spiraling out of control. Hee-seong, after successfully rescuing him, brought teacher Jun-ho to see Miss Sue. Miss Sue was furious at Jun-ho's actions, the actions that had so severely impacted the students. She sternly told him he shouldn't miss this chance to make things right. Afterward, Hee-seong drove Jun-ho to a safe place to rest. Before he got out of the car, Hee-seong took Jun-ho's phone to prevent him from being discovered. Jun-ho, looking exhausted, asked him who he was. Hee-seong simply replied coldly, "I'm just a high school student." Jun-ho gave a weak smile and then got out of the car. Immediately, Hee-seong called his team leader, reporting his plan to expose the grade rigging scandal at Byung-moon High. He decided that Jun-ho would testify to the police tomorrow. Once the truth was revealed, Myung-ju would definitely be summoned and the parents would withdraw from her project. The education city plan she had been nurturing would vanish into thin air. After ending the call, Hee-seong sat back, his mood heavy. He thought about the past, the days when he was a child and followed his uncle around, collecting waste paper and searching for his father. After so much loss and pain, was this finally the last step to closing the book on this case full of conspiracies and schemes? Hee-seong sat in the car all night, his mind racing with relentless thoughts. When he woke up, he decided to call his uncle, wanting to tell him his real plan. But before he could speak, his uncle spoke first. "We've known each other for 20 years, don't you think I understand you? Let's grab a drink later." Hee-seong smiled, but tears flowed freely. He knew his uncle always understood him better than anyone else. The plan began. Hee-seong put on his school uniform and walked into Chairwoman Seo Myung-ju's office with a provocative attitude. He looked her directly in the eye. "Who's the mole inside the intelligence agency who's been colluding with you? What are you looking for with Emperor Gong's hidden treasure? And I know everything you want to achieve. But I just want to know one thing, why me? Why drag me into this operation? What happened to my father?" The chairwoman remained silent, her eyes cold and unwavering. Hee-seong didn't wait for an answer from her. He turned on the TV, showing her the scene of teacher Jun-ho giving his statement at the police station. But Myung-ju's attitude didn't falter. She just smirked, her voice full of sarcasm. "How boring. You look like an amateur. You're acting like the sky is falling over the testimony of some mediocre teacher." Hee-seong didn't flinch. He slowly pulled out a USB drive, holding it up in front of her. "This is the evidence that teacher Lee Jun-ho gave me." The chairwoman's face immediately changed. Hee-seong continued to threaten. "If the Kim Hyun-ho case is reinvestigated, you'll be charged soon. You could spend a decade in prison." At that moment, the police burst in. Hee-seong threw the USB drive straight into their evidence box. The entire school was in an uproar over the news of the grade rigging scandal. Yina sat in the student council room, completely devastated. News outlets everywhere were reporting that Chairwoman Seung-yi Myung-ju was accused of inciting murder and falsifying academic records. The Byung-moon Foundation's Education City project was on the verge of collapse. After handling everything smoothly, Hee-seong went to the upper floor to see Sue. They kept thanking each other for getting through the painful and dangerous challenges together. In the cold interrogation room, the director of the agency walked in, his face stern. He looked directly at Chairwoman Seo Myung-ju, who was sitting there with a calm, even defiant, attitude. Realizing there were no plans left to turn the situation around, the director immediately announced the cancellation of their partnership. He even gave her the business card of a good lawyer as a final gesture. But Seung-yi Myung-ju just smiled, a sinister smile that made people shudder. She looked directly at the director, challenging him. "Don't you all know what a crazy woman is capable of? Why aren't you afraid of anything?" That statement confused the director, who didn't understand what else she could do in this situation. Meanwhile, Hee-seong and his uncle were sitting together in a small pub, as they had planned. The two of them raised their glasses, their eyes full of emotion. Hee-seong said to his uncle, "Don't cry anymore. You look really ugly when you cry. I'm going to be the one who finds all the gold and my father." At that moment, two of Hee-seong's teammates also arrived. The four of them sat together, gathered in the warm atmosphere of friendship and solidarity. Back at school, Yi Na couldn't escape the whispers and gossip following her mother's arrest. Sue, her teacher, with empathy and compassion, reached out to Yi Na to talk. She gently said she hoped that Yi Na wouldn't let her mother's situation bring her down. "Stay strong, Yi Na," she encouraged. Meanwhile, Hee Seong was diligently searching for clues about the gold. He had to uncover the answer to the fourth school horror story. After sifting through accounts from his friend and the information he'd gathered, he discovered his first clue. The one who holds the jade was a reference to S. Laman. Hee Seong immediately called the captain to report. Following the fraud incident, inspectors arrived at the school to investigate. Just then, a familiar figure walked in, stunning everyone, especially Sue. It was Chairwoman Myung-ju. Hee Seong immediately rushed over. The two faced each other in a tense atmosphere. She challenged Hee Seong, "Your little undercover student game ends here." She ripped the name tag off his chest. Hee Seong was expelled and forced to leave the school under the watchful eyes of his classmates. Despite facing numerous hardships, he had no intention of backing down. The last case his father handled before his death fueled his determination to investigate until the end. Unexpectedly, a task force from the National Intelligence Service raided the captain's office, sealing it off and searching it. Even as the captain demanded an explanation, they simply tossed him a stack of cash and falsely accused him of taking bribes. Not stopping there, the captain was escorted away, leaving everyone in shock. Immediately afterward, Hee Seong received a call from the chairwoman. She declared this his parting gift and threatened that if he made any more moves, Sue would be the next one in danger. Pushed into a difficult position, Hee Seong was torn between his investigation into his father's case and protecting Sue, the person he cared for. Sensing his hesitation, Sue happened to walk by and figured out what was happening. She urged him not to give up, because if the chairwoman found the gold, the unfair educational scheme would continue, harming many children. Realizing his responsibility, Hee Seong resolved to complete his mission and protect Sue at all costs. Later, the captain called to report that a suspension order had been issued, and the team was disbanded. While blaming himself for implicating his colleagues, Hee Seong didn't give up. He persuaded the team members to help and decided to use his home as their base of operations. At the same time, the director of the National Intelligence Service met with the chairwoman. He pleaded with her to stop asking for favors, because if old secrets were exposed, neither of them would escape the consequences. However, the chairwoman scoffed and ordered the principal to tighten control to keep the director in check. Meanwhile, Yu Young secretly called Hee Seong to report the chaotic situation at school. Students were being divided into lunch zones based on academic performance, with drastically different food. Underperforming students had to eat later, while only students in the special classes were allowed to attend evening enrichment programs. Yu Young hoped the intelligence service could intervene. Yi Na overheard this conversation but remained silent. Hee Seong and his three teammates worked at home, looking through a collection of literature that Sue had given him. He discovered a picture of his father in it, but under the pseudonym Teacher Kim. A detail about the gold in the collection hinted at the fourth legend of Buong-moon High School. Hee Seong deduced that his father might have created the legend to misdirect or stop the chairwoman. The saying in the legend, "The one who holds the jade when facing the fiery red sun, golden light will shine," led Nam to speculate about a symbol in the school. Hee Seong suddenly remembered the bust of S. Gumon and believed the treasure might be hidden beneath it. Immediately, he ran to school. Sue, still saddened by Hee Seong's departure, suddenly realized that a delivery man's actions were suspiciously familiar. She chased after him and scolded him for his recklessness. When Hee Seong revealed the secret about the statue, the two examined it together and discovered it could be rotated. Just then, the vice principal appeared. Seeing the suspicious delivery man, he ordered Hee Seong to take off his helmet. In a desperate situation, Sue quickly jumped in, covering the vice principal's eyes and making up an excuse, helping Hee Seong escape. Not long after, the vice principal reported the matter to the chairman. After reviewing the security camera footage, the chairman immediately recognized the delivery person as Hee Seong and ordered the principal to initiate phase 2 of their plan to deal with him. Yi Na entered, bluntly announcing that she knew the truth. Hee Seong wasn't a student, but an agent from the National Intelligence Service. That was also the reason he was being expelled. She demanded the chairman tell her the truth, but the chairman simply brushed her off, confidently declaring that the educational city project would definitely be completed, and that Yina would inherit everything when it was. Faced with her mother's coldness, Yina burst into tears. Just once, she wished her mother could consider what she truly needed. However, the chairman simply assumed that what Yina needed was her companionship. The chairman stood up, wanting to take a walk with her daughter before leaving the office. At that moment, Yina spotted a message on the tablet. Meanwhile, Hee-seong unexpectedly received a phone call that immediately darkened his expression. Under the chairman's manipulation, the school website suddenly published a shocking piece of news. Suwa was accused of having a relationship with an underage student, accompanied by a series of photos of her and Hee-seong together. Immediately, Suwa found herself in the eye of the storm. The principal ordered her suspension and demanded she report to the chairman to receive her punishment. Just then, Hee-seong appeared, dressed in a stylish outfit. He walked onto the podium and frankly admitted that the photos were real. Then, he pulled out his ID and declared to the entire class that he wasn't 17, but actually 31 years old. The whole class gasped in astonishment, constantly questioning why he had concealed his age to attend school. Hee-seong was about to reveal his true identity, but Yu-young quickly raised her hand to signal him to stop. Suwa also shook her head slightly. Immediately afterward, he changed his story, pretending to say that he only had a junior high school education, so he wanted to continue studying. Dong-min immediately asked about his relationship with Sue. Hee-seong calmly replied that she had helped him a lot to adapt to the school environment, and, above all, she was someone he really liked. The whole class immediately erupted in cheers, teasing, and even demanding that the two kiss. Just then, Hee-seong noticed that the chairman and the principal had entered the classroom. He faced the chairman directly, declaring that it was his turn to make a move and told her to wait and see. The chairman was furious and gritted her teeth, not expecting Hee-seong to be able to turn the tables so quickly. The principal suspected that someone had leaked information about the photos in advance. The chairman suddenly remembered that when she returned to her office after the walk, she had caught Yina holding the tablet. That night, she angrily questioned her daughter about why she had helped Hee-seong. Yina didn't avoid the question, frankly admitting that she had tipped him off when she saw the photos. Her instincts told her that her mother was doing something extremely dangerous. As her daughter, she just wanted her mother to stop. But the chairman refused. She immediately gave the order. Within the next week, Yina would have to study abroad. At that moment, the secretary sent a message. The bust in the Educational City Museum had been fully installed. Seeing the words "bust," the chairman suddenly remembered Hee-seong and Suwa sneaking around the statue of Byung-moon. Immediately, she ordered the principal to inspect that area, while she rushed to the school. At the same time, Hee-seong decided not to wait any longer. Today, he would officially break into the school to search for the gold. The team leader and his colleagues warned that with only 4 people, they couldn't fight the chairman without more support. Just then, Sue's mother walked out of the kitchen, offering to help. As it turned out, she used to be the boss of the Blood Chicken Gang. Although she had retired, she could still mobilize her former subordinates. Soon after, she led her men to surround the school. Hee-seong flashed his badge, using the excuse of investigating spies to conduct an investigation. The chairman immediately called the director of the NIS for help. But at that moment, the director was busy playing G. Hee-seong's female colleague quickly took the call, diverting her attention. Hee-seong confidently walked into the hall. Once again, he turned the statue. Immediately, the statue shifted, revealing a secret passage. He followed the tunnel into the dusty secret chamber, but it was empty inside. Through the walkie-talkie, he informed the team leader that it seemed the gold had never existed at all. The captain was about to ask more, but the signal was suddenly cut off. Just then, Hee-seong was horrified to discover a desiccated skeleton. The watch on the corpse's wrist left him speechless. It was his father, who had been missing for a long time. Hee-seong's teammates, waiting outside, were surprised to see the female director's people arrive. Worried about the situation, they had no choice but to let the director and the principal into the school. Upon entering, the director quickly realized the statue had been rotated. Sensing something was amiss, she rushed down to the basement to search for the gold. However, despite turning everything upside down, she found nothing. In desperation, the director frantically searched, even climbing on the desk, but the result was still zero. Her frenzy reached its peak, and she screamed like a madwoman when she realized her entire plan had completely collapsed. Overwhelmed, she fainted on the spot. On the other side, Hee-seong returned home with his father's clothes and watch. Tears streamed down his face as he recalled the days he'd spent waiting for his father to come home and celebrate his birthday. But in the end, his father was gone forever. A bullet he found on his father's clothes could be an important clue in the case. And sure enough, after receiving the results of the examination from a private institute, his uncle immediately reported the news. In October 2003, the police chief had reported the loss of a shell casing. All the evidence pointed directly to Chief Kim, the prime suspect in Hee-seong's father's disappearance. After so many years of living in uncertainty, Hee-seong finally knew for sure that his father was gone. Overwhelmed with grief, he held a funeral for his father, mourned by everyone. His colleagues and teacher Sua were by his side during his grief. But what Hee-seong didn't expect was the appearance of his old classmates. One by one, they were dressed properly, bowing their heads in farewell to his father. Despite being consumed by sorrow, this sincere affection warmed his heart, helping him believe that his father wouldn't feel alone in that distant place. Finally, everyone saw off Hee-seong's father's coffin to its final resting place. Meanwhile, the director still couldn't accept the harsh truth that the gold was gone. She kept rambling, insisting that Hee-seong must have moved the gold elsewhere, despite the principal's attempts to explain. At the same time, Chief Kim began to take action. He summoned personnel to deal with Agent Dung, Hee-seong, and Team 4. Receiving a message that he was fired, Hee-seong immediately grabbed his gun, preparing to act. Before leaving, he didn't forget to take Sue-a's hand and say, "Thank you." Sensing the distance in Hee-seong's words, Sue anxiously ran to inform his teammates. After hearing this, they immediately discussed the situation. Is Hee-seong planning to point a gun at the chief? Without hesitation, the group immediately rushed off. On the way, his uncle kept calling Hee-seong, trying to stop him. His voice was filled with worry, begging his nephew to turn the car around immediately. But in response, he only received a resolute statement from Hee-seong, "This is my matter. I have to end it myself." After saying that, he hung up and sped straight towards the hotel. With the experience of an agent, Hee-seong quickly identified Chief Kim's room number with a few simple tricks. Waiting for his men to leave, he rang the doorbell. As soon as the door opened, a gun was pointed straight at the chief's head. His voice was filled with resentment and bitterness. "Why did you kill my father?" Without waiting for an answer, Hee-seong grabbed the chief by the collar and slammed him onto the table. During this time, Chief Kim hurriedly pressed the alarm button for help. In an instant, a security team rushed in. At the same time, Hee-seong's teammates arrived. He pulled the trigger, threatening to shoot if the chief didn't tell the truth. Terrified, Chief Kim was about to speak when his men appeared, demanding that Hee-seong drop his gun. They immediately restrained him and dragged him away. Witnessing this scene, his teammates couldn't stand by and watch. 3 people rushed in, grabbing heads and slapping the security guards so that Sue could easily get through. With the agility of an athlete, she used the crowd as a support, jumped up, kicked the commander, and ran to rescue Hee-seong. Sue quickly grabbed a fire extinguisher, spraying white smoke everywhere, creating an opportunity for her and Hee-seong to escape. But the danger wasn't over. Another group of people continued to pursue them. Hee-seong's teammates, disheveled as they were, immediately charged out to block the enemies and help him escape. And so, a real battle began. Despite being overwhelmingly outnumbered, fueled by a nothing-to-lose fighting spirit, the 3 of them threw themselves into the fray like mad warriors. They had never been so energetic or fervent. After only a few punches and kicks, the entire group of opponents was sprawled on the floor, looking at each other in a pathetic, disheveled state. The team couldn't help but feel like they were straw heroes, all bark and no bite. Meanwhile, the chairwoman had completely lost her mind with her craving for the gold. She was so blinded by her desire that she refused to listen to the principal's advice, determined to find it at all costs, still fantasizing about becoming the owner of the education city. Over on their side, the 4 of them, hair a mess, clothes rumpled, could only sit and listen to Hee Seong's accusations. Why did you guys follow me? Did you think I was going to kill the bureau chief? I'm not that stupid. I'm ranked 10th in the whole school. The team leader questioned Hee Seong. Why did you speak to teacher Sue in a tone that sounded like a farewell? Hearing this, Hee Seong suddenly realized it and angrily replied, I just wanted to thank her for arranging my father's funeral. Returning to the main topic, Hee Seong expressed his suspicion that Chairwoman Seo Myung-ju was involved in his father's death. That's why he recklessly threatened Bureau Chief Kim. Taking this opportunity, he installed surveillance equipment to monitor all information from eavesdropping on calls to tracking locations with the goal of finding evidence that the bureau chief was connected to the chairwoman and what happened on that fateful night. At the same time, Myung-ju, seemingly gone mad, suddenly ordered a horrifying increase in tuition fees. Upon hearing this news, teacher Sue was furious and went straight to confront the chairwoman. If you do that, at least 150 students won't be able to continue their studies. No school in the district can accommodate all those students. Where will they go? But in response to her concerns, Myung-ju only showed indifference. Did you have an appointment with me? That cold reply enraged Sue, and she shouted in anger. The two of them erupted into a heated argument. As Hee Seong predicted, Bureau Chief Kim came to see the chairwoman. Their conversation revolved around the bullet that the bureau chief had once sold, which had now been discovered in Yi Hyan's body. But Myung-ju didn't seem bothered, simply saying, I'll take care of Hee Seong. As for that bullet, you deal with it yourself. That statement caused Bureau Chief Kim to explode in anger. In a fit of rage, he yelled, You're the one who killed Yi Hyan. Even if you don't remember, you were the one who pulled the trigger. On the other end of the line, Hee Seong heard everything. He was stunned to realize the horrifying truth. The bureau chief had previously brought his father, Agent Yi Hyan, to the roof of Byung-moon High School to meet the chairwoman. At that time, they forced him to reveal the location of the gold vault. But Yi Hyan bluntly stated that the gold vault had never existed in the first place. The secret safe that Seo Byung-moon created had nothing inside. Everything until now was just her delusional fantasy. However, Seo Myung-ju refused to accept the truth. She threatened to harm Yi Hyan's son Hee Seong. Hearing this, Yi Hyan recklessly lunged forward, but was restrained by her subordinates. Even so, he didn't give up. Taking advantage of their carelessness, he suddenly broke free, held a knife to the chairwoman's throat, and said, You'll never find it. After that, he immediately ran away. But at that moment, the chairwoman pulled out a gun and fired, hitting him in the side. Agent Yi Hyan tried to escape into the basement, but due to his severe injuries, he collapsed there. For years, no one found his body. Hee Seong, tears welling up in his eyes, turned off all the surveillance equipment and rushed out. As he left, he called Bureau Chief Kim, uttering a cryptic sentence. How does it feel to be kicked out of the game by Seung Yi and Myung-ju? Immediately, Bureau Chief Kim realized that his phone had been bugged. With no other choice, he arranged to meet Hee Seong in person. But when he arrived, what horrified Hee Seong was the scene before him. Bureau Chief Kim had been murdered. Before he could react, he was knocked unconscious. When he woke up, a perfect frame-up had been set. Hee Seong had been turned into the murderer. The police arrived, arresting him without giving him any chance to explain. Meanwhile, news of the case sent all of his teammates into a frenzy. They immediately went to his house to search for evidence, hoping to find a clue to help him turn the tables. Eventually, Ma Young found a voice recording in which Chief Kim admitted that Chairwoman Seo Myung-ju was the murderer. They thought this would be the evidence to save everything, but just then the police raided the place. 3 members of the team had to put on an act to buy time, trying to get the data file out. But while secretly slipping the file into his pocket, Mong was spotted by a sharp-eyed officer who seized the evidence. Immediately afterward, the superintendent took the file to the chairwoman so she could destroy any trace of the crime. Thinking all threats had been eliminated, Myung-ju became arrogant. She personally went to see Hee Seong, a smirk on her face, and said, "This time, you're a goner." A police car arrived to take him into custody, but not wanting them to achieve their goal, Hee Seong fought back madly. Despite being outnumbered by the police, he put all his strength into resisting. Then, he turned to threaten the driver. While arguing with Hee Seong, the driver lost focus, causing the car to veer off course and crash into another car, plummeting straight down a cliff. Fortunately, Hee Seong survived. His whole body was covered in blood, but he managed to crawl out of the wreckage. Despite the excruciating pain, he struggled to find the key to unlock his handcuffs. Limping along the desolate road, he made his way to a public phone booth and called Sue, but before he could finish speaking, his body gave out and he fainted. Sue repeatedly called Hee Seong's name but received no response. Overwhelmed with worry, she quickly located the phone booth and rushed there in a taxi. When she arrived, she was horrified to see him covered in blood and immediately helped him into the car to take him home to care for him. Because he was on the wanted list, taking him to a hospital was out of the question. The next morning, Hee Seong woke up. Sue quickly asked him what happened, and she was shocked to learn that he had escaped from the transport convoy on the way to prison. But what shocked her even more was that Hee Seong was being framed for the murder of Hee Seong's father by Chairwoman Myung-ju. Everything that had happened was a trap she had set. Hee Seong insisted that he would personally catch them all to get justice. He asked Sue to stay home during this dangerous time. But with the compassion of a teacher, she insisted on staying at school to protect the students. His teammates were definitely essential to this plan. They appeared in disguises, looking like a troupe of actors, leaving Hee Seong and Sue speechless. Before their astonished eyes, the teammates explained, "The police are after you. They're even monitoring us." It was hard to shake them off our tails. Even though he'd escaped, the captain found himself in a bind with no plan or evidence to confront them. Just then, Ma-young confidently spoke up. "There's still one last card to play. Have you forgotten who I am? I'm the only flower and the brains of Domestic Affairs Team 4. As it turned out, she had anticipated that the investigators would target her to seize the USB drive. So, she deliberately presented a fake USB drive while rushing to complete the process of copying crucial data. However, fearing a personal search, she had left the real USB drive under the pillow at Hee Seong's house. Unexpectedly, the landlord of Hee Seong's room recognized him as a wanted criminal on the list, and immediately called the police. The five of them immediately scrambled to escape. In the urgent situation, with the police banging on one side and them trying to resist on the other, Hee Seong had no choice but to break the window and jump down with Sue. Luckily, they landed on a thick mattress, cushioning the impact. Realizing that the situation was becoming increasingly unfavorable, with the instinct of a national agent, Hee Seong decided to create a diversion to allow Sue to escape. A tense chase ensued. Just then, a truck suddenly swerved onto the road. Seizing the fleeting opportunity, Hee Seong clung to the side of the truck, taking advantage of the chaos to evade the police, successfully losing them. On the chairwoman's side, she was gradually losing support from the board of directors. Under immense pressure, she was forced to retreat and face the risk of resignation. In addition, the police's failure to arrest Hee Seong made her furious to the point of collapse, constantly taking pills as if she were eating candy. Meanwhile, 3 members of Hee Seong's team were arrested and detained. They frantically tried to seek help everywhere but were still unable to get out. Even though Hee Seong had escaped, his health was steadily deteriorating. The constant fighting, coupled with the car accident, had taken a severe toll on both his physical and mental state. This made Sue even more worried and determined to do everything she could to help him. In a surprising turn of events, despite being a fugitive, Hee Seong risked everything to find Captain Gong Jin-sang and tell him the whole truth. He exposed the entire conspiracy orchestrated by Chairwoman Seo Myung-ju. Knowing that helping Hee Seong succeed would give him the opportunity to promote T-Soo and make a significant mark on his career, he agreed to assist. Captain Gong Jin-sang secretly returned to Hee Seong's house to retrieve the USB containing crucial evidence. With the evidence in hand, Hee Seong confidently went to the police station to turn himself in. There, he presented a recording capturing the moment the headmaster killed Chief Kim, proving his innocence. At the same time, he confronted Detective Cho Sang-chun, coldly stating, "You've been openly collaborating with Seo Myung-ju. It's sickening to watch. It's time you arrested the real mastermind." In another development, Chairwoman Seung-do believed that calling the students back together to discuss their future would help erase everything that had happened. However, things didn't go as she planned. When the students heard that teacher Suwa had been forced to resign, they all protested in unison, forcing the chairwoman to leave her position. They even collectively signed a petition demanding her immediate resignation. Having lost everything, Seung Yi Myung-ju seemed to go insane. She brought gasoline, intending to burn down the entire school, turning everything to ashes. An arrest warrant was issued for her. Hee-seong's entire team sprang into action. Despite feeling dizzy, Hee-seong tried his best to focus, entered the school, and held Seo Myung-ju at gunpoint. But she was holding a lighter in her hand. Just a flick, and the flames would erupt instantly. Because the situation was so dangerous, he was forced to comply with her demands and put down his gun. Immediately, Yu Young secretly texted Yi-na. Upon receiving the message, Yi-na immediately asked the headmaster to turn the car back to the school. Seeing her daughter crying and begging her to stop, Myung-ju not only didn't come to her senses but became even more deranged. Filled with hatred for everyone, even her own daughter, she raised the gun, intending to end her own life. At that moment, Suwa rushed in to stop her, accidentally causing the lighter in her hand to fly away. The students screamed in panic, but Hee-seong, with quick reflexes, managed to grab the lighter just before it hit the floor, successfully saving everyone from disaster. The police immediately stormed in and arrested the headmaster and the chairwoman. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief as everything finally came to an end. However, Hee-seong collapsed from exhaustion, causing his team to panic. In his daze, he recalled warm memories with his father. When he woke up, he saw everyone anxiously surrounding him. Even Young-hoon had fainted from staying up for days, causing him to chuckle. Hearing from his teammates that the headmaster had confessed to everything, Hee-seong immediately sought him out. He looked directly into the headmaster's eyes and slowly asked, "What does Seo Myung-ju mean to you? Why are you willing to sacrifice everything for her?" The headmaster remained silent. Hee-seong continued, "You were adopted by her family when you were young. It's probably been over 40 years now, hasn't it? You see Seo Myung-ju as family, as someone you're willing to sacrifice your life to protect. But think carefully, does she really see you the same way?" Hee-seong's words seemed to strike a nerve in the headmaster's heart. At the trial, he testified that he and the chairwoman had orchestrated everything from framing Hee-seong to other crimes. Hearing that, Seo Myung-ju went crazy. She screamed, calling him a traitor, thrashing around as if possessed. But in the end, all the crimes she had committed led to only one outcome, a life sentence, forever losing the chance to see the light of freedom. Yi-na visited her mother in prison. She didn't blame or resent her. Tears silently streamed down her cheeks. She choked out, "I love you, Mom. I love you very much. But I can't forgive you right now. I'll come again." Those words were like a knife to Seo Myung-ju's fractured soul, awakening the last vestige of conscience within her. Returning to the school, Hee-seong and Suwa were astonished to see the sky filled with paper airplanes. On each small piece of paper were heartfelt messages from the students. "It was great being your friend. Thank you, teachers." These words allowed them to feel the warmth of a place once consumed by conflict and resentment. Amidst the overwhelming happiness, Hee-seong returned home, deciding to clean up the attic, a place holding countless memories of him and his father. Upon seeing an old brick with a white star painted on it, he curiously pried it open and couldn't help but be stunned. Beneath it lay a massive amount of gold. His father's old message, "Go to the place with the bright star, and you will find the answer," was now truly resolved. Hee-seong burst into laughter, realizing his father was indeed an incredibly skilled secret agent. Without hesitation, he handed over all the gold to the country, officially completing the mission his father had left behind. 5 years later, Suwa realized her dream, becoming a writer and publishing the novel Youth Agent. Her younger sister, Yu Young, pursued a career as an investigator, continuing on the righteous path. Yi-na found her passion in art, happily pursuing her painting ideals, and the friendship between her and Yu Young remained strong. Hee-seong's uncle had now become a powerful director general, but his humorous personality remained unchanged. The couple Ma-young and Young-hoon finally got together, writing a complete love story. Under the starry sky, they raised their glasses together, enjoying every happy moment with each other. The past was gone, the present was filled with loved ones, and the future held days of standing side by side, every moment shining brightly.